Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, cross ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you today? Okay. There's been a lot of talk lately about women invading men's spaces, their hobbies, their secret caves, all that, right? Um, the question of today is is media such as movies, games, TV shows, are women or what would be colloquially defined as woke negatively affecting the industry, our games that we play? Or is that all bullshit? I guess we'll find out today. I brought some great guests in today. We got quite a stellar cast. And yeah, here we go. We're going to start with Paula. Give us your opening thoughts on this, and then we'll just go around the room. Cool. What do you got for us?
I think I was one of the people in 2014 to write one of the original defenses of Gamergate, which was when intersectionality, feminism, started attacking kind of traditional men's spaces, boys' spaces, male spaces, in order to kind of join a club that they weren't really happy with. So they decided that they wanted to change the rules of the club to make them. And it's kind of like, well, if you join a club and you don't like it, find another club. So this has been happening since kind of woke or intersectionality. They're both the same thing to me. Went mainstream with Gamergate. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for reaching out. We had a bit of a churn in the guest list today, but Paula was kind enough to come in, jump in last minute, so I appreciate you.
Okay.
Next up, we have Macabre Storytelling, please.
Yeah, and I just go by Mac to make it easier because
go.
I don't even really know how to spell macabre sometimes. I think when we're talking about male spaces, I think what's important to differentiate is if we're talking about male spaces or certain clubs or activities that were intrinsically designed to be solely male. So we're talking like a support group or something like that, or just a mostly male space in terms of, say, like a particular hobby or franchise. In that regard, I don't really see the issue being women entering men's spaces. The primary issue in my eyes is just corporate bankruptcy, basically creative bankruptcy. Part of that is pandering to sort of a larger fan base that does include women, to try and get as many people to enter that fandom so they can make a lot more money. But the issue doesn't seem to be women entering traditionally male spaces. Again, it's mostly just corporate pandering and bankruptcy.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. You were the one who originally reached out to me to put this together, and I was happy to do so. So let's get into it. Cham, go ahead. What are your thoughts, ma'am?
Yeah, so I don't know like too much exactly what exactly the topic is. As someone who's very much into probably a male dominated I like anime, I like video games, like Gundams and all that. I chronically go to anime conventions, comic cons, video game conventions, so I'm in that environment all the time, and I've always been for a very long time. The idea that it was specifically for men, and they're butthurt that women are joining, I really actually don't think it's that big of an issue. And I think a lot of men in that environment are actually enjoying women like being part of that, and even going as far as finally having someone that's into the same hobbies as them. And so I think it's been great.
Well, thank you for being here. We will get into it as we go. Admiral Gibbs, what do you got?
Yeah, so I actually don't blame women here. What I blame is the insidious leftist woke virus that has seemed to like seep into all aspects of society and is really just pervaded everywhere. That's the real issue here, is that they can't let men have anything. Just this week, Cosmopolitan put out an article saying that men, if you enjoy allowing a woman to orgasm, that's shame on you. That's bad. So, men, guess what? Women, when you can't even enjoy doing a good job pleasing your partner, man, they go into every hobby. We see this with the femstones in Warhammer. They take things from men just for the sake of taking men's culture away and doing it just for the sake of it, because they won't let men have anything. And it's very insidious, and it's leading to the low T soy boy cuckery that is really all the Democratic Party is about, and really the culture today is about, and it's terrible.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Next up, last but certainly not least for now, until Pentuple decides to arrive, Ghosty, what do you have for us today?
Okay, so I take the position where anybody who has a certain love or enjoyment or passion for any particular hobby or just any kind of club or anything like that should be free to enjoy that along with anybody else, whether it's particularly like a feminine space or a more masculine space traditionally. I think if you have a love for that particular thing, you should be able to enjoy it with the other people who also love it, and your gender, race, religion shouldn't impact the love for the thing that you're joining. I do think that having female-only or male-only particular spaces are important as well, but not so much in the like hobby sports kind of like whatever sense like that. So yeah, that's where I stand.
Okay, well, good introductions. I appreciate the conciseness. Man, I just can't talk today. I guess the first question for all of you, though, would be like, for those of you who think that there is a problem here, right? That there is something happening, that there is some, whether it be women, whether it be the leftists, whatever you want to call it, right? What precisely, where'd he go? What precisely is the issue with women having representation in video games or movies or anything like such as that? Paula.
It's just against the norm. Oh.
It's against the norm. Like, Paula, what would be the issue, right, with more women representation in games, right?
There's no issue with people who, like you say, join the space because they have a love of the genre. There's an issue, and it's not really an issue with women, it's an issue with feminists. And most women, remember, are not feminists. So it's an issue with feminists just wanting to kind of come in and dominate an arena and change the rules. That's the big thing here. They're not they come into a space and they try to change the rules. And it, like I'm a gamer. And I've enjoyed it. This is one of the reasons why I wrote the Defense of Gamergate back in 2014. So, and Anita Sarkeesian, you're probably all too young. Anita Sarkeesian kind of launched her kind of attack on games. And now Sweet Baby Inc. in Gamergate 2 are kind of doing the same thing. They're kind of like getting into the industry and trying to subvert the hero's journey into a heroine's journey. And the thing is, I play games, I watch those films, I watch the hero's journey, all those kind of things, because it's a male journey, and I enjoy that kind of that thing. It's I don't watch it to kind of to watch kind of a lesbian fantasy of some kind of butch woman saving another woman. It's kind of I want the classical romance, I want the kind of the stereotypes, I want the archetypes. That's what I'm in there for. That's what I'm watching it for, and that's what And as I said, the hero's journey is a hero's journey, not a heroine's journey. So it's not really about people who don't enjoy that. It's about people coming in and subverting that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to piggyback off that. If you also, in addition to that, it's not even just that, like that aspect of it, right? Sure. Like, I'm not saying we can't have, the leftist journey. We can't have, the woke lesbian hero journey. I don't even care about that. It's that they'll take things that are predominantly male and gay, like made specifically for men, right? Like, I'm going to use Warhammer as an example. You have Space Marines, who their whole thing is they're sexless, basically, right? So it's a power fantasy where you're blowing aliens up. You're sitting here, you're with your bros, you're making the heroic last stand. Yeah. Woo, feels good. Like you're excited, like against all odds. Like, okay, cool. But then they want to come in and force their way in, change the lore, attack it, and make it something it's not because they just don't even want to see men happy at this point. Like it's insane. It's insidious and it's evil. I just don't understand how why men can't have anything. Oh, you give a girl an orgasm, bad. You want to have a male power fantasy, bad. You want to have anything, bad. Oh, Star Wars, you want to have like a hero's journey? No, we got to flip that. We got to make it something else. Oh, it's just everything this touches, it makes it worse. It's just awful.
What exactly are they taking away? What is being taken away specifically?
What do you mean what is being taken away?
Well, you're saying men can't have anything anymore. They're taking it all away. Like, what is exactly being
because you're
changed and
shamed.
taken
You're
away?
shamed if you enjoy this. Like, what's more American male than I like beer, football, boobs, sports. Whoa,
How
I
are
like
they
some guns.
shaming?
Because if you do
What's
that,
being done?
look, that's toxic male behavior. Toxic male behavior. Oh, that's so
They say that
evil.
in the game?
Yeah, all the time. There's characters that rail against this in all sorts of games.
Okay,
Sorry,
Mako,
just to
Mako,
kinda-
go
Can you
ahead.
name any or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
Mass Effect. Mass Effect.
Yeah, just to kind of keep this on track.
Any of
Gus,
the
can we-
MMORPGs.
Wait,
Hold on.
the third one,
One
right?
at a
The
time.
one that.
One at a time. I know we all want to jump in right now. Let's go to Mac, then go to Cham. That's the order we're going.
Well, I was just to keep it on track. Ghost, did you have a particular example we could, because we're kind of talking broadly. What is a particular example that we could focus on for now? Would you say?
Well, I was asking to the both of them.
Oh no, my apology. Sorry, Admiral. My apologies.
Yeah.
Wrong. My apology.
No
Okay,
problem.
I'll use femstodes, right? Forcing it. So this was a group. There's already female groups in Warhammer 40k, right? This is a group that was taken from the elite sons of the noble families. They're trained up. It's the 10,000 sons. There's a lot of lore and specifically why they were supposed to be male. Oh, we're gonna put them in. Oh, we need feminine space marines. These are supposed to be these are male. You can't have your power bro fantasy. Now you have to have power bro and girl fantasy. Sometimes men want to do all this stuff. The George Strait song, or I believe it's George Strait, where it's don't take the girl, and it's a romantic song kind of thing. But there is some aspect that's true. Sometimes you just want to do something with the boys, boys' night. Could you imagine, hey, me going to girls' night and raging out with the girls? No, men can't even have boys' night anymore.
Who
So,
stops
I
you?
don't-
because
don't
they
think there's
included
anything-
female.
Okay, one at a time. Mac,
Sorry.
then Cham.
Okay.
That's the order, like I said.
So just to jump off on that
sorry.
example, I don't think there's anything. I don't think so. This is where we get to sort of I think Wick, you and I talked about this, where there's sort of a meshing of confusing male spaces and taking hobbies that are predominantly male. So to your point, Admiral, there's nothing stopping you from getting together with your bros and playing Warhammer at your place or going to a bar and hanging out. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. To your point, in terms of using Warhammer as an example, yes, it is a hobby that's predominantly male, but I think you would have to justify the idea that it was made specifically as a male-only hobby. To your point, you used the
fake
example
news.
of.
That's fake news.
To your point, you used the example of, well, men shooting aliens. It's well, I mean, if that's the case, then one of the most famous sci-fi films of all time is about a woman literally shooting aliens.
And
Sure,
Sam.
Sure, but that's not wokeist, though. That's not a woke one.
Well, what would be the difference?
So, I will tell you the difference, right? And actually, Ripley is a great character, and a reason why this show's wokeism. She's not written to be some woke heroine. She's a survivor. She's a 80s action hero, right? Ripley's badass, right? And people love Ripley because she's a well-written character. People don't like when they're bad-written characters. That's what's the problem with that. One, two. When we talk about they're taking away something, all right, you're right. There's nothing stopping me and the boys getting together, right? But if there's something stopping whenever we have this established lore. The lore is going to keep going in the future, as long as the game exists. And hey, well, now instead of this only being only men can be this faction because they're space marines or whatever, and women could be only women can be Saritas, right? So we got these two things. It's all of a sudden now we're going to force the woman into the male thing. And we're going to say, oh, all these things can be male and female. And it does take away something, right? It's not all of Warhammer that's just all male. It's why can't you let them even have one all male faction? What's wrong with that? Why is that such a bad thing?
Well, so just to address those 2 points, I agree that the issue, or why Ripley is such a great character, is that she's well written. But that comes back to this whole idea of wokeism ruining movies and whatnot. Uh, Male or female, the issue is poorly written characters. If we look at Star Wars, the issue with the sequel trilogy isn't that Rey is a woman, it's that those movies were written horribly. They sucked. Just like a lot of the male-led Star Wars properties also suck, even if they were run by men. That's not really the issue. The issue is corporate
Well, that's not true
infrastructure.
at all.
I mean, we can go into examples after, but as for your second point, I guess I agree with you. Taking something that has established lore and changing it does kind of suck no matter what. But again, this is an issue with corporatization. This is a corporation trying to appeal to as many people as possible and sort of losing the essence of a particular property. I would say that's exactly what happened with Star Wars. But again, if we're focusing this particularly on women, I don't really see where that is coming from. We keep sort of, I mean, you sort of open not saying women, in particular. That's sort of what the topic of the day was about. I think that is what a lot of young men online who hold these opinions would say. It's
So-
women
Yeah,
entering the
there's a
space.
leadership cast of women
if I
that are
may,
doing this
if
stuff.
I may kind of bridge this gap, because I think we're maybe missing each other a little bit. At least for Paula and Gibbs, it seems their issue isn't so much with individual women per se; it's with the ideology of feminism. Would be the driving force. Would that be a correct assessment? Am I stealing?
Yeah, I mean the
Okay.
current version of feminism.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Ripley's a great example of feminism, right? She's a character that is in a predominantly male role that's written well. She does good, right? Like nobody has a problem with something like that, but like she's also people have demonized her. People have demonized like what was the character Hercules Spino's Xena. They demonized Xena even though Xena used to be the symbol of like progressivism. Like which is crazy because this new wave of has like taken over. So it's not even feminist as a whole. It's specifically the woke leftist like feminists today that are running it. That's the problem right now, and that culture.
Would you?
It's in my
So
opinion.
can we use some or from Paula or Mel, what are some examples of the sort of, I think Paula, you kind of mentioned it, the sort of bastardization of the female. For me, I think the heroes, as someone who is passionate about writing, who has studied writing, I don't really see the hero's journey as intrinsically male. So what would you guys say are some examples of sort of the bastardization of the hero's journey by sort of like injecting a woman into it, which would be like sort of like the feminist ideology part?
Oh no, your
Oh,
audio.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
The feminist got her, guys.
Give her a minute. She can obviously hear us. While she's doing that, right? Let's toss it for a moment to Cham while she's fixing her audio. And as soon as you fix your audio, please just jump in, right? But Cham, you had some thoughts.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you go. Okay,
Oh,
great.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm coming from this from a more kind of historical perspective as well. Kind of if we take Anita Sarkeesian from the original Gamergate, she was looking at all kinds of video games like Tomb Raider and Zelda.
Hitman. She bitched about that.
She what? Sorry?
She bitched about Hitman.
Yeah. Well, she didn't like anything that was basically kind of a traditional kind of story, basically. I mean, we're talking about the hero's journey, basically, from the journey to the West. From classical literature, from the Iliad. Men have created the hero's journey in literature for 3,000 years. Okay. Now, it's not to say that there are women who are atypical and can become that, or even unlike kind of male traditional things to do. I'm a tomboy, and I've always liked them, and I loved Lara Croft, and I didn't have any problem with the size of her boobs. It was just really funny, and I really liked the gameplay, and I really liked the games were just amazing. Anyway, picking out, but then looking at it through a critical lens of critical theory, critical feminism, all of this kind of thing, and you deconstruct everything out of it, and then say, well, this contributes to rape culture, this contributes to everything that's wrong in the world, toxic masculinity, and it takes everything that's good and about archetypal male and female relationships and tries to make it toxic. And most people don't agree with this. Yeah, more women are becoming gamers, but they're not playing Grand Theft Auto. They're not playing Assassin's Creed. They're playing jellies or whatever it is. Those things that you get on your mobile phone, or Candy Crush and things like that. But that's not to say a large minority of women like those kinds of games. It's when the ideologues come in and then try and subvert and change and criticize and apply a lens of critical theory into this. I mean, there's been loads of there's been games that have just completely bombed recently.
Can you give us an example?
We get an example, yeah, just so we can.
I can't think off the top of my head, no. But if
Culture is a good one. Culture is a great example.
Endymon on YouTube, he kind of he's the specialist there. So,
but okay, Admiral, do you have an example just so we can kind of?
Yeah, what was it? The one that just came out? Culture? Was it Culture?
Condor?
I'll pull it up. Yeah, Condor. Yeah, it came out, and it was specifically built towards like the wokeist bullshit, and just flopped like Joe Biden's.
Was that the one that cost $400 million to make?
It was something outrageous, and it just was supposed to be this like leftist bastion of gaming, and it just like that's really the one that comes to mind recently in the last like couple weeks.
What did that have to do? Did that have to do specifically with a woman taking on a hero's journey role? Because there are a lot of reasons a video game could fail, right?
Oh, so hold on, I want to differentiate a little bit here. I think between our two opinions here, I don't have a problem with women taking on a hero journey role. I like my basic issue is when it's like the twisting part of it, right? Like you can have heroes' journeys to be women. I think that's like the hero's journey is unisex in that regard, right? Like heroes fall, hero's journey. You can have these archetypes, but like to change it, and the reason why Ripley works is because she takes on some of the masculine characteristics, right? It's instead of so much like, hey, they're going to make this hero, I don't know, like androgynous. They're going to like make them, this feminist icon. We're going to uphold these specific values that are anti like male. Like there's a difference between a woman going and taking on masculine roles like that are archetypal and then having that as a workable story and like subverting it, right? Like that's a better way to put it, in my opinion.
Well, it's strange.
Was a minor character.
Sorry, my apologies. What was that?
Ripley in the original Alien was a minor character. She was not the main character. She only came to the fore.
I don't know about that.
Talking about the same film? I don't know. I might
be. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, I just watched this yesterday.
Yeah,
she was not like a major role in.
Yeah,
no, she has a major role,
but even in the sequels, she's like the action star.
She doesn't begin as a heroine. She's kind of she emerges as
development. Yeah, she goes through a journey.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to separate myself from this point.
Goes through a journey.
That's a good movie then.
This doesn't seem like women invading male spaces is a problem, because I feel like women who probably have a love and like enjoyment of these games probably are upset if the actual game is being changed itself as well. So I don't think that has to do with women invading the spaces of these games.
We agree that it's not really women.
I think video games have just expanded, and a lot of people are butthurt about it. There's plenty of like female character gamers, like you got Laura Croft, Samus, anyone.
But, I mean, they all take on male characteristics. I mean, and then like you look at some of you in the newer sales, like they've gone too woke, and the sales haven't done as well.
Can you give me an example?
I mean, the recent Laura Crofts have not been like as like praised monetarily wise as even the older ones. I mean, you can see it. Star Wars, for example, right? We've inverted the journey in Star Wars, and there's a reason, arguably, there's a reason why Solo flopped so hard is because even though The Last Jedi made a lot of money, it ruined the franchise, right? And people hate the sequels, and it's because of this inversion of like archetypal roles, right? And then that, and just outright disrespect to lore, but there's two things to so in Star Wars, but okay, I'll give you an example, right? Whenever we've had good writing, right, in previous things in the EU in Star Wars, they had characters who were inherently leftist and they were well written, and it's not just the well written aspect, it's that in the new stuff, even though they're leftist and that's fine, it's fine if they're well written, it's that they will do stuff purposely to be woke, and you see this across a lot of leadership at like Disney and other major organizations. Cosmopolitan hates when men give women orgasms and enjoy it. What
Okay.
men can't enjoy doing their partner?
I don't
I'm just
know what
saying,
that has to do
why
with
are you
gaming,
taking enjoyment?
but-
No, but it's like well, the point is it's not gaming. It's across the board. Men can't have anything they enjoy of themselves. It's just like that's what they're coming after, and that's the issue. Like, oh, space race. Oh, we're gonna make it wider accepted. It's hurt their bottom line. So it's not I hate capitalism. It's clear they don't know their audience. And like Amazon, they're about to put the Warhammer show out. It's in limbo now because they're forcing women and feminism and into male-dominated spaces and not allowing men to have it.
Before we allow responses, I'm going to read some of my super chats. Got to make a little money here. $10 from Psychonaut. Wick keeps invading my wallet. He must be stopped. No, I cannot be stopped. I will continue to do so. $10 for Zephyr Hash. Thank you for the $10. And then $20 from Audacity to say this. The brunt of the issue is that there is essentially a lobby looking to co-opt predominantly male-driven fandoms for the sake of inclusivity that routinely drives the overall quality down using mafia-style tactics.
Exactly.
So. Thank you for
So
whoever said
Style
that,
tactics?
genius.
to that,
Another example is the
just-
Witcher.
I'm still waiting for a current example of like a woke female character. Oh, and please give. I'm obsessed
Ray,
with Witcher. Go on.
we can do Ray from Star Wars. You want that one? Does that work for you?
Well,
Yeah,
Star
well-
Wars has like new owners too, so that could have to do with that, right?
Well, that's my
Like-
point right there. That's my point. You're making my point for me with that. Like,
Well-
and with what the chatter said, it's like there's a cabal, if you will, at the top. Like, I hate to sound like the crazy Illuminati guy, but like, it's not necessarily Illuminati. It's that there's current leaderships are pushing this agenda.
well, so just to wrap this, I mean, the issue here is like I'm not disagreeing with necessarily what you just said, or even Wick's last super chat there. But again, it's all coming back to this idea of corporations taking something, really not understanding the core of it, trying to appeal to as many people as possible, whatever group that is.
That's a
whether
lie.
it's
That's a
women.
lie. That's why. So why do they call their communities toxic if they don't immediately eat their bullshit up? They then go after and
Because-
attack these groups. It's not that they don't understand. It's that not only do they understand what the group is, but they want to clear out elements of this, like ostracize the community, take this from them, and make it into something so unrecognizable. Nobody from that original community wants it anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It's like they don't. That's the corporation. They don't care about the passionate.
No, it's the people at the
original
top.
fan base. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
corporations. This is what
corporations.
we're-
Which is ran by this people with this ideology. Like you're trying to say they're
Wait.
not one and the
Okay,
same.
let me maybe interject here because again we're missing each other. I think again. First of all, $10 from Blahiki Blah. Sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce that name. There have always been women in gaming. They aren't the ones being talked about. The invading people want to change things. Why is Stellar Blade controversial when she was the norm 20 years ago? The question I would have for you, Mac, right? So if you agree that this is like a corporate problem, right? Like that there's groups in the corporation that want this to be changed. The next question to be asked would be why? Because we are seeing the bottom line of these companies for a lot of, and you could disagree with why, but gaming's losing money, right? Game corporations are generally losing money. It's a little bit more of a mixed bag with media in general, right? But if they are doing it simply to make money, that doesn't seem to explain it because they seem to be losing money. So what's the issue?
Well, if we were to talk specifically about gaming, I would,
Sure.
again, if we're going back to the whole like sort of corporate infrastructure, I wouldn't, again, I almost think we're making sort of like mountains out of molehills. I don't think the issue is whether the next Ghost of Tsushima game has a female lead or a male lead to pander to some fan base. The real issue is more the fact, when it comes to just gaming culture in general with microtransactions, games that hide DLC behind paywalls, things like that. There are so many. To answer your question in terms of why gaming or the PS5 Pro that just got launched for $700, where there's like a dearth of games to even play it on, and half the people weren't even able to get their hands on an original PS5. I agree that the gaming industry is failing in that respect. But as for
I think it's big. I think you
being
should say big blockbuster games. Like if you're gonna talk about like big blockbuster games, which you're mostly talking about,
Which
I
I
think
think is
that's
fair.
definitely like indie games. I think they're doing very good. Big blockbuster games are just like the movie industry. It's just becoming shit in general. Poor everything you said beforehand. So it's really on the company itself and what they're trying to do, which is a cash grab at the end of the day.
And
Or
if it's
even
not
to-
This is cope.
working,
This is cope.
It's
This is
not.
cope.
It's not making. It's not
if
making.
it's
Or
not
even-
working, they'll
I
change.
could give you. No, it's not. This is
Or
cope.
even to bring it back to the Star Wars example, if we look at, are there some like aspects of like corporate pandering that I think diminish the Star Wars brand? Absolutely. But when I stand back and look at the Disney Star Wars, their endeavor, it has more to do with just straight up corporate ineptness. They're
cope.
trying.
This
They're
is cope.
trying.
This-
I mean,
This is
okay,
total
but
cope. Star Wars is such a good example of this, and this like really proves the whole point. Kathleen Kennedy's in the hot seat again after the Acolyte. A total fail. The Acolyte once again subverted established lore, changed it in order to just be this woke for the sake of woke bullshit, and it failed miserably. Failed. Right?
But-
then hold on. No, this really disproves all the things you have to say. We have the other side ran by Favreau and Filoni, who are also a little bit lefty. However, their stuff is well written, and even when it is woke or has a woke message, it is woke. Instead, we have this the High Republic, which is Kathleen Kennedy's baby, which has been a financial disaster where they purposely input stuff to be woke, and it's like we're doing this. We're taking a character that was otherwise one thing, we subvert it, put it in there. Oh, you have established like lore that's key to the franchise. Well, we're going to subvert that so that it doesn't have any masculinity at all. And we put this in. And the reason why it's failing is because their audience is rejecting it, and it's because they can tell that it has got a evil, insidious message behind it. And then y'all go, well, that doesn't count.
where
Like they didn't understand their audience, but then they turn around and call their audience toxic when they like other stuff from the same franchise that's not just inherently bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, you're flying, you're lying, and you're coping. It's one of the two.
You gotta let
Our
them
shows
respond.
like-
Go ahead. You gotta let them
Are shows
respond.
like The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, and Boba Fett, are those well received by the fandoms?
The Mandalorian is sure, yeah. I would
What
say
about
Boba Fett.
Obi-Wan and Boba Fett?
Obi-Wan is a lot of people love Obi-Wan. The Boba Fett one, it was meh, but
Okay, so the issue doesn't seem to be that like, oh, the woman one is bad. It's that it's really just a mixed bag. Some fans like it, some fans
except
don't.
here's the thing,
All
though.
of them
Here's the thing.
seem to be all
Even
over
if
the
you would
place.
hold on, that's not true. Even then, even those are the
Even
worst.
Rebel One
edition-
is led by a
even,
woman.
even hold on, even the worst,
Rogue One,
even the worst ones of those. Well, even the worst ones of those are still not as hated as like the stuff like the sequel trilogy and the High Republic, because yeah, they might be less good or whatever, but they're still better than any of the garbage Kathleen Kennedy is behind because she's pushing this ideology. I noticed he left out Andor, which is like unanimously loved by everybody, and it's got masculine traits. Rogue One, yeah, guess what? She takes on a masculine hero's journey again. Like, so
Wait, I
you're
thought
really
you
just
said-
disproving your own point.
Wait, I
What
thought
fact-
you said the hero's journey wasn't set just to masculine. Why'd you say masculine? hero's journey?
there's trait. Yeah, the hero's journey is masculine. You can be male or female, but you can't change the archetypes.
Like 10 minutes ago, you
is
said
this
that it
just-
was not.
Are you
masculine.
confused about the basics of writing? Like, come on, man.
10 minutes ago, you said that the hero's
I
journey
mean,
was
I thought
not
this is
intrinsically
simple.
masculine.
Yeah, so because
Okay.
the woman
Oh,
takes
okay.
on masculine
We're
traits.
railroading a little bit.
Do you
Oh,
know? Do you
we're-
understand what an archetype is? Like, because it seems like you're real confused.
It's a masculine trait the women characters are displaying.
I don't know. They're fighting a war. Like, I mean, is that traditionally a job that women do?
Again, so
So
are
it's
you?
just
Do
like-
you not
No,
like?
they
Defending
don't-
themselves?
because they don't actually go through a journey to earn their place in the actual story. They begin the story as the girl boss. That's what the trope means. It's the girl boss. They don't earn anything. They're just
Did-
there
They're Mary
because
Sue.
they're a woman.
Did the
all,
lead from?
all of these films, you know.
I think
Rocky
hold on.
Horror
I think a
Movie-
good example, a modern example of that, to her point, would be the Marvel, the Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel.
Exactly.
Marvel.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you, Wick.
thank you. That's a that's a good example of
She-Hulk.
someone who did not go through a hero's journey. They're just simply the best at everything off the
Yeah,
top.
She-Hulk
right?
scolding the Hulk who's lived his whole life. Like, she's like, oh, I'm angry every day.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
okay, tell the Hulk about anger.
It's a massive fail
that's
of a
not
movie,
pandering.
though.
Well, just to bring it back to if we're
Mm.
talking about women, or if we're talking about Star Wars, was it Jane who was the lead of Rogue One?
I don't know the name off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about Jyn Erso?
Jyn Marso, my apologies. Did she start the story off as a Mary Sue?
No, absolutely not. She was in prison, hiding from the Empire, hiding from the rebels. She struggled. She didn't want to confront her past, so she had to force her father. Maybe her father wasn't this person. Yeah, she went through quite a bit of a journey, I would say.
So she was.
in that
So she was a well-written female character in that sense.
Yeah, because she wasn't a Mary Sue. Like, yeah, you're proving my point. Like, this
None
is
of
I
this
agree.
has to do with women invading male spaces,
Well,
though.
yeah, that's what I'm sort of getting at is the fact that you keep trying to focus on like women invading, feminism invading, but what you just kind of tell me is that there are well-written.
No, what you're doing is you're sitting here saying,
well-written
"Oh, I
female
got an example."
characters.
No. What you're doing is you're sitting here pointing to, "Well, shit, that proves our point," and going, "This proves our point because there's a female that takes on masculine roles." So what they're saying, whenever we're sitting here saying, there's a group of people and they're pushing a certain ideology, forcing these little things to change for the sake of change with nothing behind it, and you're going, "No, that's
So why
not
didn't-
happening. There's no reason anybody's mad."
So why didn't
you're
Kathleen-
on the bullshit?
Hold on,
That's
one
what
at a
you're
Why
doing.
didn't?
One at a
So why
time.
didn't
hand
Mac,
waving.
hold on, one at a time. Mac and then Paula. That's the order we're gonna go in. Go ahead.
So just to ask you, so why didn't Kathleen Kennedy step in when she realized that Jane Erso wasn't a Mary Sue?
Why?
You're asking for it to mind
Wait, why?
read?
But Kathleen Kennedy is the head of Star Wars. Why didn't she step
Yeah.
in and say, "Hey,
You're
this
asking
Jane
for him
Erso
to
character
mind
is like"?
what's in Kathleen Kennedy's mind. How can he answer
Wait.
that question?
Hang on.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
trying
yeah,
to-
like,
hang on,
like,
hang
this
on,
is total
real quick.
bullshit.
Real quick. What I am trying to argue is that if you're correct and that there is an agenda to have all these female characters be these Mary Sues who don't go through this journey, how did we get Jane Erso?
How did we? Bro, this is the most
Okay.
ludicrous bullshit. Like hoops.
We're gonna-
I'm not even gonna have to be.
We're gonna give it to Paula. Paula was
I don't
next,
think I'm
and then
gonna
I got
do it,
some more
but-
super chats to read. So go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, I mean, we've already said it's not women per se.
He's like, but what about this? But what
There
about that?
are fantastic stories of journeys, of heroes' journeys with women in them. It's not that they can't exist. It's just that
It's
They
just
can't
so
have a hero
ludicrous what he's
journey.
doing. Like,
So let me try to
law,
let me.
basic rules of
In a video
storytelling
game.
that's existed for 3,000, 5,000 years.
Let me try to bridge the gap to the extent because I don't think I'm either not like being understood purposely. I'm not sure. To your argument, you used Star Wars Kathleen Kennedy, who is the head of Star Wars, as an example, as someone who has this agenda that these women's stories should be Mary Sue's. They should just kick ass and take names, not go through this journey. They're women. They deserve it. They've earned it. Just like Rey. I think Rey is a good example of that. What I'm asking you is if that is the case, if Kathleen Kennedy is driving this narrative, how is it that we got a character like Jane Erso
okay, fine.
in
I'll
the
play
Star
this
Wars?
game. It's a ludicrous game, and it's just denialism. But I'll play. For first, this would be my strategy if I was Kathleen Kennedy. I would try a traditional role character. I'd give it to a traditional male director like Gareth Edwards, who's like pushes the edge, and we'll do something like that. And we'll have a masculine, and we'll try out a female character. Okay, so they get used to the idea of the female. Next, we're gonna go. Oh, okay. Now that they've accepted a female lead in Star Wars using the traditional roles, what we'll do next is we're going to push more feminist agenda with our main female lead with Rey. You know, we reinforce that females can lead from the first new movie of the sequel trilogy. Now we did it again. So now we have two back-to-back women. And you know what else we're going to do? We're going to push Ahsoka really hard, and we're going to force Filoni to make Ahsoka his premiere thing and premiere character if he wants to take over all the animated stuff. I don't know. Maybe exactly what they did. Like, are you fucking like you're either sitting here being disingenuous and just like hoping, or you're an idiot or you're lying. I don't know which. I can't decide. Like, it's insane what you're doing, and you're like, I just made that up in 30 seconds, and I'm not some executive strategist, and that's exactly what they did.
So just to, I know Wick said I get to his super chats to ask you a question. If Kathleen Kennedy is simply driven by this agenda, why is it that she gave so many predominant show running roles to men? The sequel trilogy, all 3 directors were men, were they not?
This is so you're taking any measure you can to say this is just because, oh, well, why did they do this? And I just explained the method. I explained, and then I'll give you an example that even proves this one. Patty Jenkins was going to direct the Rogue Squadron show, and she said she was not going to do whatever. She wanted to be a traditional World War II style fighter epic. And you know what? Kathleen Kennedy replaced her. Why did she replace her then? We want to do this game. What was the logic between taking the Wonder Woman director out when she said she didn't want to go with the male fantasy of that? Why did she do that then? What's the strategy there?
What? Well, you said that Patty Jenkins stepped away.
No, she was forced out by Kathleen Kennedy. Why did Kathleen Kennedy force her out? Let's get in her head the way you got in mind on these. Why not? Why did she do that?
I don't know. Why would you say she did?
Because Kathleen Kennedy heard that Patty Jenkins was going to push a traditional masculine entitled film, and she goes, nope.
Okay, so again, how did we get Jane Erso? How did we get Rogue One?
Okay, well, that was a great exchange. I learned a lot. Let me read these super chats, and I have some questions to get Cham and Ghosty into discussion a little bit more. Hopefully round this out a little bit and maybe get to the heart of the matter. I think the frustrating part about this discussion for me is that there is it's almost as if we're all talking around the elephant in the room, but we'll get to that. Let me get to these super chats first. $2 from the Trib. Anti-wokes are patriarchy upholders. Time to grow. $5 from Blahika Blah. Why do corporations think these changes would be good when the evidence is these changes make things less profitable and less desired? Doobie for $20. Gibbs is wrong. It's not that they're too feminine. It's the opposite. The women in the games touched by these activists tend to be masculine, ugly, fat, etc. because there's a push to have women in games look like women in real life. The hero's journey isn't the issue. People hated Rey because she was a clear and obvious Mary Sue. They hated the whole trilogy because it shit on the original characters and lore for no reason. The Dove Epic Games commercial demonstrates the mindset driving a lot of this in gaming, in my opinion. $5 from the Trib 1. Gaming companies aren't losing money. They just aren't as lucrative. There are games that flop, but not companies. Microtransactions is the battle. Schwango for $2. The issue is that when it seems to be a male guilt vibe. $5. Bottom right is more correct, but the hate is coming from a place of ism and phobia. It's not bad writers, just choices made that are unpopular. $5 from Audacity. The question barely matters. After a series of failures, why did Kathleen not interject into a solid film premise? And then $5 finally from Rabid Wombat. Because well-written female characters make it through on merit, and poorly written ones get DEI'd in. We're concerned with the floor on quality. Okay. I'm going to go to Cham with this one because I want to try to get at the heart of what's going on here, right?
Yeah, I think you're being just a little over dramatic and a crybaby about a lot of things. I think you like point out one or two characters and you think the rest of those genres are the issue when you can chronically bring out like good women characters. For example, like Marvel, you've got Wanda who has like a great storyline in her growth and becoming who she was, and it was a good story in regards to like what she did, whether it was right or wrong. On if I don't want to spoil anything, but what she did.
Wanda's
And
kind of
the
more of a traditional female character in that journey, though. Yeah,
huh?
because she's not. Wanda's more of a traditional kind of character. She's not acting like a man. She's very She's very much a woman, and she has a very different kind of
How does she
way of
not act
writing
like a
her
man?
myself.
How does she not act like a man?
Magic.
She's chronic. What? There are a lot of
And
male and Marvel characters with magic. That doesn't make you like
no,
a
but that's
woman.
her only. That's her only. Most of the men have their are going to doing their things in very traditional masculine ways.
So
Through
her
through writing.
So you think because she uses magic that makes her more of a woman and no masculine traits at all?
Well, it's what it
I mean,
is in the literature. Okay.
she got a little emotional and killed the whole fucking world. So I don't know who's got a
I mean,
record
that's
of committing a mass genocide.
When
A lot of
that's not
men.
a mat.
right, listen, when men create warrior women, they write Wonder Woman, they write Xena, they have them act, they're acting like men. When women create them, they have special powers that make them very that
Okay, Black
they get
Widow.
their goals
Black Widow.
differently from men.
Black Widow.
It's not a criticism. I don't know why you guys are getting so offended about it.
Not. I mean, you're jumping to Wanda
Yeah.
is a woman because she does magic and she doesn't have
Like I said,
masculine
she's
roles.
more
But then
traditional.
I gave you a person that is another example. It's just a weird. It's a weird like, oh well, they're actually kind
Okay,
of
let me
act
try this.
like a man, and therefore that cancels
no,
out.
Let me try.
Wick,
Let me
they
hold
know
on.
what
Hold
they're
on.
doing,
Let me
Wick.
try this because I think we're missing the whole point again. This is to you, Gibbs and then Paula's side in this, so to speak, right? So the big controversy I see on my timeline today is a sequel to Ghosts of Tsushima or whatever. They replaced the male main character and they now have a female main character in there. A lot of people are crying foul. A lot of people are saying that this is an example of women invading male spaces, right? Do you agree with that criticism? Why or why not?
Well, I haven't played the game. I haven't seen the game. I've seen the trailer, so I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. That's a
Say.
fair answer. What about you, Gibbs?
I haven't played the Ghost of Tsushima, so I can't give any specific, but I can use a different one.
Play the first one.
I'll go with so in Assassin's Creed, the one with Valhalla, right? So you have a male character, like the traditional like male role. This is the thing that would have been there, and instead of like Thor, and then you have Odin, right? They literally make Odin reincarnate. If you play the canon version, just like some people are lore junkies, it's supposed to be this androgynous. One's like a female, then it'll sometimes be a male, and it's like you're putting this agenda in here for the same. And Assassin's Creed is known for putting in this leftist agenda in their games, and like they'll pretend to be historical, and then they'll force stuff in there, right? And so, we'll see. We're even seeing cultures like Japan, like fighting back at the newest one coming out. And so, I think that maybe this might be an example of that when you have a game that's predominantly like a male character, it's written to be male, and you force feed a female in there. I would say, yeah, it's a great example. And this is why I think Femstones is such a good example of this in Warhammer, right? This is like a traditional character. And you're like, hey, you already have factions that are these characters in the group, but you're gonna take the one from the men. Like, why? Why can't men add this?
Then, like the follow-up to Ghosty, to Cham, and to Mac, okay? Can you name me a franchise, an IP, a game, series, movie, doesn't matter, where a traditionally female lead, right, where the role has gone to a female, has been replaced by a male one?
Traditionally masculine male.
A female replaced by a male, I cannot.
Do you not see that as an issue?
Not particularly, no.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But okay, so I think like from a woman's perspective, like if we're constantly watching movies and playing video games where there's a male lead and male character, and like we can relate to that, understand it, like go through it, we enjoy it still. It's a hero's journey, male or female. So if I think the problem here isn't the fact that it's a female, it's the writing, most likely. Maybe they're not giving her enough relatability, or like the hero's journey, or like just what you enjoy when you watch these films and play these characters. It's men shouldn't have a problem going through like a female's experience if the writing is written well enough.
Well, just to sort of address to your point exactly as to why I don't see it as an issue. Well, one thing is I just want to, in terms of terminology, when we're talking about, I think this is what I hear a lot from sort of people who hold this position, this term of replacing. However, if we actually look at these examples, so to your point, the Ghost of Tsushima example, again, I don't think you meant this in this exact context. but it isn't so much that the character is being replaced. It's like, oh, we're taking this man and we're kicking him out, make way for the girl. To my understanding, the second game takes place hundreds of years later with a different main
Certainly.
character.
That was an example of what
Okay.
I feel
Don't let him
is
get away with that.
bullshit,
Don't let him get away with it.
a bullshit criticism that has been levied at a game that's
No,
not
no,
even
no.
out yet,
No.
that we don't know the gameplay or much of the story at all, right? And then I asked, I'm trying to ask challenging questions to both sides.
Don't let him get away with
Or
what he just did,
to-
though. Oh, you
What
Or
know
did
to
he
the
just do?
example,
he skipped over the Assassin's Creed. How many? Now we have shield mages. We know they fought. How many specifically male or not male Earl Vikings that were war leaders and earls and leaders? Do you know in the Viking culture that were androgynous trans women?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with
Exactly. So this would be a great example of replacing somebody and putting this person in and saying, "Oh, this is the canon person now."
So how many women characters are there to
Wait.
replace? There's
Well, also
probably
just to
going to be
There's
a
a ton of
smaller
women in
amount.
Viking mythology and
Here's the
Viking
point.
history.
Why do you
Well,
have to
just,
replace any characters? Why
Yeah,
don't
why would you make that character that at all?
Well, hang on. This is what I'm getting at. It's like, to my understanding, the Assassin's Creed isn't a single protagonist. There are many different protagonists over the course of the games, correct?
Sure, but
Yeah.
I'm specifically
Okay,
talking about
so-
no. That's a cop out. There are, but
Well,
here's
no,
the thing. Here's the thing. If you do one like that for say a different character, like you have a female Native American or something, or a female of a different thing, you don't. That's fine, but you don't get to say, oh, we're going to take a person and we're going to make a trans female individual or the main character that's a earl and a leadership cast, a Viking general person in this story, and go, oh, that's not replacing. That is replacing, and like. Yes.
The most egregious
so-
part of that was probably in The Last of Us, wasn't it?
Sorry, what was that? My apologies.
One of the most egregious examples of that was probably in The Last of Us. The Last
How
of Us
so?
2.
How so?
Can you
They
elaborate?
killed people. Played that game. They invested in Joel. They wanted to kind of like come back and play it, another journey with Joel, and then they killed him.
Yeah.
And,
So have you played The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would know that in that story, not only are, I would say, Joel and Ellie Joel is the playable character for most of the game, but I would say they're both primary characters.
He's talking about
Although
the
you
second
do
game.
play
The
as
second
Ellie,
game.
you do play as Ellie in the first game for a sizable
You-
chunk of it.
In the
When we
first
come
game.
to
What are you
the-
doing?
When we
You're not
come
even
to-
engaging with her point.
When-
The second one is when they
I'm-
kill, they replace it with the,
I know, I'm
the
trying
other
to-
girl.
I'm trying to establish.
No, you're
so
just
when it
avoiding the
comes-
question.
No, let
when it
him
comes-
finish. Let him finish.
He didn't answer my question. Now he's avoiding this one.
Gibbs. I appreciate the passion, but you gotta let him finish so he can get to his point. And then once he does, I promise you'll be able to respond. I promise. And thank you for the Twitch subs, Polars Gaming, to Women Are Cool, and Gibbs loves Lady Wabish. Is that an actual
believe that.
Twitch name? Anyway, thank you for the gift subs. Really appreciate it. Keep giving me money. Carry on.
Yeah, so what I was trying to establish was the fact that it wasn't so much that, like, hey, the first game you played as this guy, and then the second game we got rid of him, and now the chick is in here. Last of Us Part 2 was, again, I made a 3-hour video saying why I hate that game, so I am not a fan of that game in terms of story. However, it wasn't so much of like, hey, we're replacing the male character. It was a continuation of the other primary character's story. As to why we didn't necessarily follow Joel in the second one, I would argue that Joel's story roughly was wrapped up in the first game in terms of his overall arc, and now we're following the other secondary primary character's arc. It wasn't as if Ellie was like just came out of nowhere in the second one for girl power. She was a major. You could argue she was one of the most.
I'm talking about the butch woman who played the male role.
Who is the antagonist of the second game?
Well,
the bad guy kills the good guy.
became-
That's what happens in a lot of stories.
But wait, don't you play through half the game as her?
You do.
Okay, this is maybe a little too specific.
No, but
I'll
he didn't even
confess,
engage in the
I
Viking
never
Assassin's
played
Creed
this
argument
game.
either,
It
though.
never really appealed to me, so it's hard for me to.
No, he won't even. He's been so dishonest. He won't even admit that replacing a Viking general with a trans femme person is it's not replacement. It's just dishonesty from the other side. Right now
So
is what we're getting.
again, we're talking about replacement, and to answer your question, Wick, about when you asked me the question about like why I don't see that as a problem. So let's, for example, take Doctor Who.
Sure.
How many doctors were there? I think 13 doctors before they switched to Jodie, who was a woman.
8, 9, like there's quite a bit, right?
Something. Okay. So to your question about like why is it bad that we don't see women's franchises being replaced by men? Well, the reason for that would be overall is when we look at a lot of these franchises, they're still overwhelmingly dominated by men. So again,
That was
even
my
if we
point.
were to have 2 or 3 women doctors in a row, we didn't. We had one and then we switched back to a guy. But even if we had 3 women in a row for doctors, the franchise is still majority men. Now, if we were to take Doctor Who and over the course of the next, say, like 50 years, we were to have another 20 female doctors, then I might look at that and say, like, oh, well, that's a bit strange. If we're trying to make this more a diverse, inclusive franchise, why are we only seeing women? Another perfect example is, say, if we take the Mad Max franchise with Fury Road and then the follow-up Furiosa. A lot of people were upset that, like, hey, we're having this female character replace Max. But that isn't the case. In fact, Frank Miller actually wanted to make Furiosa before Fury Road came out. It just wasn't feasible for a number of reasons. And he is trying to get funding for a follow-up film following Max's journey. So that isn't a case of a female character replacing the male character. That is a female character being added to the lore of the established universe. Well, the primary male character is still present, even in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. If we actually look at the characters added, Rey isn't replacing Luke Skywalker. You can argue that Luke's writing wasn't good in this story. I agree. But when we actually look, is she replacing him? No. In fact, of the 4 primary characters who were added into the sequel trilogy, 3 of them were men. So this idea of, and again, not to say that you're saying this, Wick, just to clear, but that is something that I've heard from a lot of young men, is like women are taking over these franchises, or like they're replacing the men. But I just don't really see that.
The counter to that would be like, why do I, as a 20-year-old man who is into gaming, care about what happened the last 50 years? I care about what's happening now. So while yes, back in the day, sci-fi, video games, media may have been male-dominated and we may have needed representation, right now I think we're seeing the pendulum swing the other way, right? Where if all I'm seeing of the current crop is female Ghostbusters, right? Oh, look, they took my main character and it's a woman and she's a lesbian. And oh, look, right? She's probably a person of color as well, right?
Why can't they create their own franchises?
What does the gender or sex of the
That's a good
character
question.
have to do with the actual like
These all new
storyline?
characters too. I feel like none of these you're actually talking about is a complete character chart changing a gender and a race or anything
Well,
like that.
no,
They're
the
all
Ray
new
example
characters.
is the Ray example. Yeah, she's okay. Hold on. Just because they're a new character doesn't mean they're a replacement. First of all, not only do they subvert Luke Skywalker, right? They subvert him. He's this masculine person that denies the dark side. All this. They take that guy. They
Okay,
throw.
his story's been played out. Like he's done.
Hold
Move
on. No. So what they do is they take this character. They subvert him. They say, "Oh, look how he's fallen. Look how bad he is." Spit in the face, right? Hot to it, right? Right in the face. Then they take the character that's the new leader of the Jedi Order. This is going to carry them into the future, and they go, "You know what we're going to do? We're going to make them this Mary Sue female with this leftist ideology, and she's going to come in here and take that role away from Luke Skywalker while we simultaneously take our big old fat shit on him." And that's what's happening. And you'll go, "Oh, well, there was 3 other men in there." And I'm like, great. And one of them just yelled, fucking Ray for half the film. Like, what's your point? Like, you just because you're going, what about this, doesn't mean that this other thing's not happening.
So just to sort of focus on Wick's point.
Hold on. Mac and then Paula. Go ahead.
So just to focus on Wick's point, I think that is a really good counter argument in terms of, we didn't really get into, in addition to media, I didn't know if we were also going to talk about, spaces in terms of like clubs or organizations or stuff like that.
That's all on the agenda, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. But I think that is actually a good point in terms of when you have a lot of young men look around, a lot of sort of like, female-only spaces or clubs or organizations to help promote women, for the time, I think those were really important because they were in response to exclusion. They were, hey, the establishment isn't letting us, it's very similar to why at a college having a black student union makes a lot more sense than having a white student union. You might probably like raise your eyebrow at that. You're like, why would you need that? However, for a lot of young men in today's day and age, when they're looking around, they are still seeing a lot of remnants from that past time where, hey, you guys were always in charge. And it's like, well, for a lot of young guys who are like, well, I don't feel in charge. I kind of feel like don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. And then they look around and this is why I don't think we touched upon it. Again, like you said, we get to it. I actually do think there is an importance to male spaces, to male camaraderie and whatnot. The issue I have primarily is that a lot of young men, because they don't have those or they aren't able to form them or don't really know how to form them, they sort of latch on to hobbies or activities or even sort of like very nebulous concepts as like the gym or I think even like that tweet we responded to when we first chatted, like men had sci-fi, like very like nebulous large things that they're trying to latch onto, or even like multimedia franchises. But then they kind of get lost. So when people try to sort of like diversify them or, add more inclusivity, they feel very threatened by it, even though it's not really a male space in the more literal sense, as in a space that was particularly designed to sort of offer a space for men only in terms of camaraderie or support, etc.
Before you go, Paula, and I'll let you go, just let me get through the money, right? $2 from Blocky Blah. If gender and race don't matter, why change it? $5 more from Blocky Blah. I don't enjoy relatability. And this is something I want to touch on actually later, but we'll get to it. I don't enjoy relatability. I want heroism. I want beautiful people doing super amazing things. Traditionally, we didn't focus on relatability.
Can I reply to that really quick? Because that was about something I made.
Very quickly, but we got like $100 more in super chats to go. So.
Yeah, want to clarify, when I say relatability, I don't mean like a character that looks like me or is like, is like relatable to me like physically. It's like that what they're going through, the struggle, the journey, like we can all as humans relate to that. So I just want to clarify that.
Oh, thank you. Fire Agicon for $5. Folks, remember poorly written female characters, but not poorly written male ones. This is sexist delusion / cope. 32% of lead actors are women. Chill. $20 more from Doobie. I saw a tweet from one of the activists pressuring GW for female LGBT trans space marines that sums up this issue pretty well. It was essentially, I don't like the violence in Warhammer 40k. I don't like how depressing and xenophobic the setting is. I don't like tabletop gaming. But it would mean a lot to me to see more LGBT femme body representation here. It might make me more interesting in playing. Blocky Blah, $10. Wanda's issues are about her husband and kids and her desire for motherhood. Black Widow's biggest personal issue was that she was made infertile and can't have kids. These are feminine archetypes.
Her child died. She did have kids.
Still a feminine archetype.
Yeah. Rabid Wombat for $5. We already read that.
Her
Okay,
killing
we're
people is also feminine.
Yeah, but let's go to Paula. It was your turn. You had some responses.
Very male behavior.
Thank you for the Twitch bits and subs as well. Twitch. I'm sorry. 400 bits. Magic Sky Wizard says Star Wars was leftist from the jump. It's a critique of the Vietnam War and American imperialism. This is from Lucas's own mouth. And we are on a hype train on Twitch, so keep giving me money there, gang. But Paula, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just what I'm hearing from the women on the panel here really is that like sex and gender shouldn't matter. But the fact is it does. We're here because it does. Because there's a phenomena, and people and men are pissed off. And then I'm hearing crybaby and all this kind of thing, just dismissing the fact that, men are just trying to express that they're dissatisfied with what's happening, and they've been told by the two women on the other women on the tough, and that's exactly why they're pissed off.
Or how about all the years we went through having to experience the same fucking male-dominated community, and now that the roles have reversed and women are into
So
gaming, the
it's
gaming
revenge.
industry. Hey, let me finish. Fuck. God. Let me finish.
Go on then.
Typical. Now that the roles have reversed, a lot more women are into video games, are into buying PCs, are into a lot of what men are into. The industry has changed to also create games for them. I
Not
don't know why
creating
you're
games.
butthurt.
They're
Wait, so
taking
so
over
turning
male games. Create your own games. Fair enough.
They do.
Well,
I want to say
wait,
too,
hold on. So
it's
there's no
And
go ahead.
men aren't left out. Do you know how many fucking games there are with like women that are like
Exactly.
voluptuous with great tits and ass,
Well,
and you
Stellar
can play
Blade
with
was
the pretty
Oh, I
controversial
do.
because
girls?
of that.
No,
Hold
because
on.
you
There are
because like four
why
people
did they
on
get mad
Twitter
about
bitched
Stellar Blade with the
about it.
bunny
No,
outfits?
there are plenty of
No,
fucking
why were
women
the
that
bunny
were
outfits
okay with that.
controversial? Why
There
were
are
the bunny
plenty
outfits
of
controversial?
no, it was like 4 people on Twitter pissed off. Okay,
Oh, okay.
that's
So
not
why is it not a
controversy.
problem?
There are
Why?
plenty of fucking
So there's
women.
you have no issue with them making Odin, grandfather Odin, who traditionally not Thor, who did do like some little femme stuff. Not Odin, grandfather Odin, one of the most masculine people in mythology, a trans female. Why is that okay?
I don't know anything about that game, so I
Oh, so it's
stopped
so
playing.
convenient.
Also, I want to
I
say
stopped playing Ubisoft games a long time
Okay.
ago.
Ghosty,
It's
I
not-
want to pause. I want to pause.
I stopped playing a lot of corporate games a long time ago. I'm not paying $60 for some like cash cow grab bullshit. That's why I said switch to fucking indie.
I'm passing the
Like I
ball.
said in one of my essays, there'll never be a feminist Tesla. There'll never be a feminist Google. There'll never be a feminist Assassin's Creed. Make your own games and make your own franchise. Make your own like triple A video game.
There are. What do you
Well,
mean?
I just
Do you
want
not?
to
I feel like you don't know anything about video games. That's why
What?
you're talking.
Well, I just want to touch upon
It's
when
always good ad hominem when you're threatened.
I think
Oh,
this is kind of
right.
getting.
It's literally the fact that you don't know any female characters. The fact that like you think there are no female. There are plenty of genres where women are the
Where are the
like
AAA
main
games?
lead.
What are the women?
So-
What are the female AAA games?
Samus, anything Metroid, Laura Croft, a lot of the characters from Resident Evil. You've got fighting games with Chung
Take
Li.
on
Like,
traditional male
what do you
roles.
mean? You got fucking Peach. If your whole
all
argument is to jump back, well, they act like
But-
men.
But those don't
Well,
subvert the hero's journey. They take on masculine roles.
They
Like there's a
have
difference.
their
There's a
own
difference between
journey. What do you
Wanda.
mean?
There's a difference between Wanda using traditional female archetypes like motherhood, loss, like dealing with these things.
So they
This
need
is a
to be.
video
emotionalized.
game.
And
So
there's a difference
they
between
need to
that
be in the
and having
fucking
Laura
kitchen, and
Croft
that's
who
what
takes on
counts.
masculine
Okay.
roles in
Right.
these things. Like there's a totally different things.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
think-
Ghosty's been trying to get in.
Thank you.
Poor Ghosty hasn't had a chance yet, so we're gonna give poor Ghosty a little chance here. I'm gonna give the mic to her. I see you, Mac. We'll get
Okay.
to you after that, but go ahead.
Take your
I
time.
have two things to address. One, when we talk about traditional roles, we're talking about video games and like fantasy things. So there's nothing really traditional about people having superpowers and going, all these, like, women can. I think the problem is when you talk about like sex in these things, women have for a very long time been able to watch, male leads and play male characters and adapt to that perfectly fine. And I think men are struggling to do the same thing in the reverse. So it's not about like having to be that person, like you be that person. It's going through the experience. And right, when we're talking about like superpowers and stuff like that, there's nothing like traditional. We don't have to keep like traditional masculine and traditional feminine. That just doesn't really apply as much. Like, sure, that can be in there, but overall, it doesn't overly apply.
You can respond if you'd like.
I don't know, Paula, do you want to respond? Or?
They don't seem to
Well,
want
I mean,
to. Go.
yeah, you can have that, but it's not going to be successful inverting those roles.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah, I mean,
So
the audience
I
that
think-
they're trying to appeal to is minuscule. The men are and have been, the main audience for these genres and
Yeah,
these franchises that
financially,
people
they
love. And
yeah, the argument that capitalists don't like this is bullshit because we see this repeatedly when you take a traditional character, like that's a traditional male character, and you subvert their roles. You saw it with Warhammer 40K. When they announced Femstones, stock prices drop. Prices since then, their quarterly reports, bad. Amazon had to cancel a show. Got to put a show in limbo. Boom. All right. Okay. We look at other examples, right? You see across the board with video games where they take these characters and do this, and financially they don't work out, so it doesn't appeal broadly. The other issue with this is it's not that these characters that are women are like it's that they're women. It's that these characters y'all are trying to say, they come in, they take a role, and they subvert what that role is. Laura Croft in like Tomb Raider, she's an example of a female being masculine and fulfilling that archetype. That's much different than Wanda doing her feminine stuff and going losing her mind and all that. There's totally different things. They're
Women
different
going
archetypes.
mad is
Follow
very
different-
traditional. Okay,
It's
that's
very traditional.
very traditional.
It's very
But we're
they're
gonna
going
pass it
crazy.
to Mac and let's see what he has to say. Go ahead.
So I think the disconnect here is, to your point, Paula, when you're talking about women taking on their own franchises, I think the issue, or at least that I am sort of putting forth, is that the entire issue here is that you are deeming certain franchises male when they weren't intrinsically male to begin with. If we look at Star Wars, is it intrinsically male in the sense that the majority of the fan base over the years was male? Sure. But the issue with, none of those male...
family film, mostly.
Yeah, but then none of those men had an issue with the character of Leia. So the issue of having a female lead character in the sequel trilogy isn't the issue. The issue is that she's poorly written.
No, you see what they're doing here. They're once again skirting the issue. They're not engaging. Why? Okay, you still haven't answered the question. Why is it okay to go in there and take something that's specifically male within a franchise, say like Space Marines, and all of a sudden take this thing away that meant one thing to a whole group, and it's only one aspect within the franchise, and remove this from being only a male thing? Why can't we have one little thing that's a male only thing? Why is that so evil?
What specifically are we talking about that was male only in a particular franchise?
Exactly.
I just gave you an example. Fem Space Marines, Femstones.
Well, no, I'm saying that
all
women
of
enjoyed...
Warhammer is only men.
I didn't say all Warhammer. There's female factions. There's females galore. I'm talking about one small aspect in there that's only supposed to be male. Why can't we have one little thing in there that's only male?
I'm not familiar with Warhammer, so I can't...
Okay, so there's a faction.
I'm
going to give you an example.
I can answer this.
Yeah, go ahead, Wick, please.
I can answer this as someone who actually is just starting a 10th edition Sisters army, right? So Adeptus Sororitas is a whole army of ladies, right? For the most part, there's some men in there too, I believe. I'm not a lore expert, but for Warhammer, they still have male-only factions. The Adeptus Custodes aren't one of the male-only factions anymore. But the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, yeah, they're still only male.
They're the only one that's only male.
That's okay, though, right? That you have a space.
Again, going back to the example of, say, Doctor Who, it seems like this issue of, like...
It's not engaging.
I'm just using that as an example to kind of relate, because I don't know Warhammer. You guys know it more than I do. But what I mean by that is, like, when we're looking at, say, like, the role of the Doctor, I wouldn't say that the role of the Doctor was intrinsically a male thing. This was for boys because it was a male character. He was just a character that throughout the years was casted as a male.
Right. What if it was Power Rangers? And only the Maroon Ranger could be male for whatever reason.
The Power Rangers.
No, hold on. We're gonna make up just the bullshit, right? What if in the Power Rangers there was a character, and only this character, he was the Maroon Ranger, and he can only be male for some reason, and based off lore. Why is that a bad thing?
I think the fact that you have to make up a scenario in your head of a character...
I'm trying to give you one you can understand.
Well,
that's what it is.
Let Mac finish. You keep interrupting him, and I want to hear his point. He's long-winded, but that's okay.
Well, he hasn't engaged in
Mac,
my point.
Go ahead.
So,
to your point, I think the issue is that you have to sort of almost create a scenario where a character...
It's already been created. That's the Warhammer scenario.
But didn't Wick just say that there are... other male factions.
There are,
only
yes.
No, what other male only faction is there?
I don't want to make this a Warhammer panel.
Sure, but what other only male faction is there in Warhammer?
Orcs.
Orcs aren't they're genderless.
Yeah, but they're male
They're
coded.
mushrooms.
Whoa,
They're
that's
mushrooms.
woke.
They're
That's
male
woke.
coded.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
fucking woke. Whoa.
Exactly. But
Whoa.
that's not taking away anything from anybody. That's gives it that's a genderless faction.
Why are you playing this woke ass game?
Hold up. Does anyone look at an orc and think androgyny?
Hey, exactly. They're
Rule
No, they
34,
don't.
Okay.
It's literally a mushroom.
Okay. Anyway, let's keep going here. I want to get it back a little bit on track.
No. But what they're doing, what he's doing here, Wick, is really bad. It's really bad faith. Like, so he's going, you have to make up a scenario. No, I don't. I gave him a scenario, and he's just not, knowledgeable enough on the subject, right? I could have picked Star Wars, and I picked something that anybody know. If we had a character, Power Rangers, right, and was two Rangers, one specifically the Pink Ranger can only be female for some reason, and we have another character can only be male. He's like, well, that doesn't exist. Well, we gave him an example. It did exist. We had one faction out of 1 million factions that are male only, and they're like, no, we have to take that from them. And there are people campaigning right now to make female Astartes, right? And that is a problem. And they're because they can't let men have anything that's only male. And I'm sure there's numerous examples of this throughout all sorts of franchises, but you're sitting here being so bad faith and refuse to engage in it. So I gave you a hypothetical to play this little game you're doing, and you wouldn't engage in that. So why don't you engage with it and stop being bad faith?
Sure. So for the Power Rangers, your example was, what if there was a Power Ranger that, for whatever reason, had to be only female or only male?
Sure.
Okay, so for what reason would there be?
I don't know, maybe just the ancient maroon tablet would kill females for touching it, and it's created this culture. I don't know. We can just put some bullshit in there. Like, you're getting like lost in the weeds. The point is, it can only be male.
Okay.
Why do we got to change that if that was that lore thing?
If it was established in lore?
Sure. Why would it be bad to have a male-only thing that only men can have? One little thing within a franchise.
I wouldn't see an issue with that if that was a lore issue and it stayed like that.
Okay. Can I ask, moving...
Just concede a point.
Paula, go ahead.
I think you are right to a certain extent about the writing, but then that brings us actually to the core of the issue, which is the culture. Because writing these days happens. It doesn't. Writers are kind of taught, and they're kind of putting they're hothoused and told how to write things, what you should be doing. We want to focus on something about diversity here, and it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because they know that their writing isn't going to get picked up if it doesn't kind of tick these boxes.
They're taught how to write shitty female characters, and that's supposed to be like good for women.
Okay, so this is something I can speak on.
I'm not saying it's good for women.
It's not. That's probably the whole problem.
A little insight into how a lot of writing, not all writing, obviously, is done, right? But a lot of writing, when you're writing a story or a novel or a script, right? It's not just a singular project usually anymore. You get beta readers, you get alpha readers, people to read your book, to give you input, things like that. If you're writing for a corporation or you're writing for a IP, you'll usually have direction, right, from the company that will tell you, well, we want to see this, we want more of this, we want less of this, etc. So when I'm not necessarily agreeing with Paula's point here, to be clear, but the idea that there is a large influence on what is written and a culture on writing that does shift is just true. You can look at sci-fi as a genre, right? The norms and how that was done and the standard story has evolved over the years, right? And
because I used to work in TV writing in the UK, and they start you off kind of working on these really shitty kind of like daytime soap operas, but they write the plot themselves. Somebody higher up writes the plot themselves, and they say, well, we want this, and this to happen, and this is what you kind of like bring that all together with the characters and dialogue. That's basically, yeah. And then you go through this process for years and years, and eventually you might get one of the kind of like a job on the primetime soap operas and stuff like that. It's you basically have to do what you're told. There's very little creative actual input in it at all.
I want to respond to that point, but just
Go
first,
ahead.
I want to respond to Admiral real quick, just to go back to your point about the Power Rangers, the lore. I agree that there was a lore reason as to why this one person should only be male, yeah, I think that you should stick to that. And if someone changed that, I understand the fandom getting upset. However, I'm talking more in relation to things where that doesn't apply. So, example, the female lead in the next Ghost of Tsushima game, there's no reason why there couldn't be a female lead, so why not? There's no reason why there can't be a female doctor, so why not? There's no reason why James Bond can't be black, so why not? But then a lot of people still get upset about that for some reason. Those are the people I'm responding to. There's like an actual lore reason, and you fuck with that. Yeah, you can be upset about that. But just taking a character who was traditionally male and you make them female for no real reason other than why not, and it's not conflicting anything, I don't have an issue with that. To your point, Paula and Wick, when we're talking about writing, and Paul, I think this kind of connects to your point about you asked before, why don't people make their own franchises? I think it's less of an issue, and this kind of relates to your point. It seems like it's less of an issue of it's not that people don't want to make their own franchises. It's that, especially in Hollywood now, particularly with big budget films, which is, I wouldn't be surprised if, big Hollywood high budget films crumbles in the next like 5-10 years. But the issue is that the pool of franchises of greenlightable projects is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So they're relying on things like putting all their money into Marvel or to big franchises where people know. It isn't so much that like they're out to try and turn these things female. It's just that they have to latch onto those things in order to get them made. And then to Wick's point of you have so many people in this process. It's not like in the 70s where like New Hollywood where like, hey, Spielberg, go nuts. Hey, Scorsese, go nuts. The producers were hands off. Now you have like an entire committee or several committees of people all putting their hands in the pot. And that's kind of going back to what I was talking about in terms of sort of corporate pandering. It just sort of results in this very sterile, dry...
Gray goo.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Gray goo.
Smorgasbord of just writing conventions and everything just gets mixed in, and there's no discernible issue there. It isn't so much that I think there are a lot of great writers working and that could do a lot of great work, but they simply aren't given the freedom because of corporate hierarchies and restrictions.
I want to move the conversation from media a little to real life spaces, to in-person spaces, right? Because I think this is where the Gibbs' side has its strongest points, right? If you were to start a server, a Discord server, and you said, I'm not letting women in, I'm only letting men in, you would get a lot more criticism than if you would if you started an all black server where you only let black people in, or all women server where you only let women in. You'd probably still get criticisms for both of those, right? But the idea of the culture where you can't have a male-only space without receiving a large amount of people who call you misogynist, who call you sexist, exclusionary, etc., is a real issue. From one of the super chats, the Boy Scouts, for example.
Can I
go.
respond to that real quick?
Yeah,
Because
real quick.
I've been really wanting to, it might take a bit, but just so this Boy Scout thing is completely false. I don't know why people keep repeating it. So in 2019, the Boy Scouts of America, the organization, did open their ranks to women or to girls. However, within the Boy Scouts, there are still boys only and girls only troops. I think a lot of people don't get that.
Also-
the reason
sorry.
the Boy Scouts of America opened up their numbers is probably for a number of reasons related to the fact that just last year they had to settle $2.5 billion for rampant SA cases over the last several decades. They kind of had, so a rebrand was really necessary for them. But the big issue was in 2019, their enrollment numbers were dwindling, like a lot. So, because a lot of people sort of frame this narrative as if like this was the feminists coming in and saying Boy Scouts are evil and they can happen. No, what happened was that the Boy Scouts of America realized their numbers were dropping. They realized there was a market for young girls who, instead of wanting to join the Girl Scouts where they made cookies and braided hair, they wanted to hike and they wanted to camp and they wanted to do, the curriculum of the Boy Scouts. And so the Boy Scouts of America decided to open up their ranks. I think they bumped their membership by like 15%. It pissed the Girl Scouts of America off for that reason. However, to be clear, there are still girls only and boys only troops in the Boy Scouts, as well as co-ed troops, which I think overall is a great thing. I think it's great.
I was gonna say too, like, it's because the Girl Scouts are complete bullshit. You literally don't do anything but sing songs and like paint. It's basically just like another classroom. Where in Boy Scouts they actually teach you how to tie knots and like survival skills and all that outdoor stuff. Like when the Girl Scouts, you don't have any of that. It's bullshit.
And
wait, aren't the Boy Scouts non-profit though?
The Scouts of America?
Are they a non-profit organization?
I'm not sure.
Because if they are non-profit, then why would they care about their financials?
Well, we're talking about enrollment numbers, not even if they're non. Well, even if
then why would enrollment numbers matter if they don't care about their financials?
Still need funding.
You still need funding. You still need people coming to it. And again,
so you say they weren't getting enough funding if they were non-profit.
And again,
they wanted to expand. What? Because there's two very different things there.
Wait, hang on. I mean, we can look it up real quick, but again,
I don't know. I mean, that's an important differentiating factor there. Because if it was just enrollment, if they were profitable or they were able to keep the lights on, doing the Boy Scouts thing, then there was no reason for them to need to up their enrollment numbers. What's the? You see what I'm saying? Like, if there's no market pressure.
Well, again, we have to look into it. But regardless, even if that was the case, even if it was just about enrollment, it.
Well, no, because it matters right there. There's a big matter factoring right there. Because if just increasing enrollment, then why that matter at all? Why wouldn't this safe space for boys be fine? Like, keep it at that, and they could have made like something else. Like that, your argument doesn't make sense. Why would
they? Gibbs, you're being silly.
Nonprofit.
No, I'm not.
You need to put back what you.
Nonprofits still need to make money.
No, the argument. No, that's not the argument I'm making. No, that's not the argument I'm making. Rick. So the argument I'm making is if they're able to keep the lights on with only doing boy stuff, right? And they're cool. There's no need for them to increase their enrollment across the board because it's already doing what they're supposed to do. They have they're financially positive. They've got whatever they got going on with the boys, right? Now, they could have made another separate nonprofit for the co-ed scouts, or they could have just made the scouts. But it's specifically what they did. If they aren't a nonprofit, they bow to market pressure, which wouldn't be the thing because they were already still like profitable would be the thing, right? And then they came in here, whatever. So if some of them have to close down some scouts, that's fine, as long as they're still providing a safe space for boys. Maybe the need isn't as big of there. There's a whole bunch of different factors that we're just omitting. Like, here, I understand that as an argument from his side, but you're taking away something from men.
If they're losing profit somewhere, why not gain more people to help also those men or those boys?
It's not the job of nonprofit is to gain profit.
The point of profit is to reinvest back into your company, and if they're losing money in certain places.
So just to put it to sort of address that, so again, to your point, what if they were doing fine? Well, that was the point. They weren't doing fine. Is their enrollment numbers were dwindling right around 2019 when they decided to open it up. And then just last year, the fact that they had to settle $2.5 billion in the sexual assault lawsuits, that likely was also a factor. Yeah, but regardless,
it's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm not going to get lost in the weeds on this.
Well, no, but just to clarify, one, this narrative that it was somehow like evil feminists coming in. Another huge issue, I didn't realize this myself. Another big issue was that parents were really pissed off because they would have a family that would have a boy and a girl in their family. They would have to drop them off and go to two completely different schedules with the BSA and the GSA. And the parents were like, this sucks. I don't like doing this, having to follow two completely different schedules. I'd rather just drop my son and daughter off at the same sort of scout, area. That is another big example as to why the scouts sort of...
But that was okay for 70 years, though,
Well, until their membership started dwindling and they got wrapped up in a ridiculously costly...
And usually now most parents both work, so... The times have changed.
So again, what I
want
to...
Like a co-ed scouts and still separate them too.
Yeah.
Like
So what
you
I
could
want
have
to
separate male and female.
I mean,
Yeah,
but
so
there's
what
lots
I
of
just
examples
wanna
that other than the scouts. where this
Mac's
happens,
trying to
so.
get in here. Mac.
Okay, what
finish
else?
your
sorry,
solution.
I'll be done, but because I know I kind of pivoted. Sorry, Wick. But just to confirm, one, the idea that it was somehow like evil feminists coming in to force it isn't true, and two, the idea that we have somehow lost boy spaces is not true whatsoever. There are boys only options in the Boy Scouts, as well as co-ed, as well as even options where the boys and girls troops are separate, but then they meet up occasionally to work on project, which I think is fantastic. I think this is like the perfect model for what young men and women need in today's day and age, both boys and girls spaces individually, as well as opportunities for them to come together and work together. I think that's fantastic.
$5 from Joe the Meg. Joe the Mig? I'm not sure. Profit motive in having to pay out for a lawsuit is not a justification for disrupting a male-specific space.
It's not a okay. Sorry,
He just
but just
said
to
it didn't.
confirm,
I'm
I know.
reading the
Sorry,
super chat.
not you, Wick.
I
sorry,
know.
but just to
$5 more.
confirm,
Yeah, $5
yes,
more dollars from
sorry.
Joe the Mig. Then I'll let you go. Agree. We need to discuss what happened to the Boy Scouts as a disruption of a vital male space for young boys. And then $10 from Psychonaut. Talk about how the Boy Scouts have to allow girls to become Boy Scouts. Well, thank you for the money. This is great. And then $5 from Two Links. Let's move off the games, please. There's a lot more to address when it comes to invasion of male spaces, i.e., male-centered online media being toxic. Let's talk about that a little bit, right? Would anyone deny that there is at least a stereotype of all male online spaces, specifically like all male Discord, all male forum, all male whatever, being, well, to just use the word used here, toxic? Would anyone deny that? Does anyone think that's bullshit?
I think it's fine. I'm in an all women's only Discord. Not butthurt that a man has their own Discord. Go at it. Most of
Right.
it just do
I
you,
think
boo.
I think most people feel that way, and I think a lot of this is like inner like projection of them saying like, "Oh, everybody else is saying that this is toxic," and there's really like nobody saying it. They're just kind of like projecting it and saying like, "Oh, this is male toxic behavior," and
No.
It's in the media almost every day.
I definitely
It's-
think that is a perception. However, I think that is mostly due to some of the most popular quote unquote male self-improvement, if we're talking about
Like Red Pill
Red
spaces,
Pill
kind
or
of thing.
Andrew
when it
Tate.
actually is validly toxic.
Very much so. But the question, and granted, but I think the issue there is very very similar to what we've been talking about with the rabid rad femmes, where these sort of like the smaller minority ends up taking a huge space in sort of the perception of, if you hear feminist, you don't think of just some college girl who's like, go Hillary. You think of like, we need to kill male babies or something like that. Very similar to when we talk about male self-improvement. There are plenty of, great male lifting channels, Noel Diesel, Jeff Nippard, that are, when we're talking about like male fitness. However, then when you get into, if you ask a lot of people, like who's like the biggest name in men's self-improvement, Fresh and Fit or Andrew Tate, and those spaces are undeniably ridiculously toxic. So I unfortunately do think they cast a huge shadow over any sort of, if people will look at, to your point, Wick, people will look at any sort of male-only space, no matter for what reason, toxic or otherwise, with suspicion.
And they still exist, and they're successful. And I just think it's bullshit. I always hear these people saying, like, we're not allowed to have these conversations, and we can't talk about this shit. And they talk about it every single day. And they're like, we can't talk about this. And they talk about it every day. So a lot of it, I think, is self-projection. I just think it's bullshit. I think they're just making themselves victims.
So you don't think anyone is overly critical? You think it's just kind of
No, obviously there's like, again, like the radical feminists who are going to say those things, but I think and they're going to be like the loudest voices, but I think the majority of people are fine with male self-help spaces, male positive spaces.
We want that. Literally,
opposite.
women beg for that as long as it's a positive, encouraging space. and it's
Right.
not toxic and showing the wrong message.
The wrong
Mm.
message. Who
The
decides
right
what's the-
message.
Yeah, that's the real crux of it right there, isn't it? Because this is what they do. They label these people red pill influencers, and they say, "Oh, they're toxic," right? Like I've heard people call Jordan Peterson part of the red pill, even though he differs quite a bit from Andrew Tate. And it's funny they go, "Oh, when we think male positivity, the first people I think of aren't Andrew Tate." First people I think of are like Joey Swole, who's like a nice guy. He goes out there, he defends men from stuff. He like wants men to be lifting each other. He like talks about going and working out with your buddies and all sorts. But no, they want to go straight to like Andrew Tate. That's what the dishonesty is. What they do
But that's
is
what's popular, of course.
no. What y'all do is y'all take these masculine roles like strength, like the desire, like what does Jordan Peterson say? He goes, the ability to be violent and control that violence is masculine, right? And we're like, ooh, violence is bad all around. Like it's all around, like it's just dishonest what y'all are doing. They're sitting here, y'all are taking masculine roles. You underhandedly rip those away and say these roles are toxic, even
to
though,
be-
yes, someone could be toxic doing that, but the whole thing as a whole is not toxic. But y'all will brand any trait that's like this as toxic.
No, to be fair, the red pill and like Andrew Tate and all those, the actual toxic male people call Jordan Peterson a pussy and like a feminized man. So there's a big difference there.
I also just want to confirm that, just to sort of like get this, I actually think Jordan Peterson, in terms of like his general life advice, is fine. I think it's pretty good. Whenever he talks about whenever he talks about literally anything else, I think he's completely out of his element. But to your point, Admiral, it's to some extent I do agree in the sense that every time, the sort of wick point, where if men want to just like talk about self-improvement or form their space, they are met with this level of suspicion. However, to be clear, we need to confirm this. It's not as if guys like Andrew Tate or Fresh and Fit, these are like, it's not like I found some random YouTube comment of someone like saying something sexist. These are massive platforms with millions and millions of followers of young men that we've already seen, whether it's Sneeko, Fresh and Fit, any of these guys. These have very, very far-reaching, and
what about David Goggins?
That is mostly.
Why do they call him toxic? He's sitting here screaming. He tells men, "Don't be a bitch. Get in there and lift." Like that's his whole message. Lots of people call David Goggins. I hear him classified as a red pill influencer all the time, and he's over here like working out, screaming, "Who's going to carry the boats?" and putting on clinics with the football players in the NFL. But I see people label him as toxic and say what the traits he's pushing for are toxic masculinity because he wants men to embrace a traditional strength-based value system amongst their men. Their male peers.
But again, as someone who has followed David Goggins, I think in terms of motivation, he's fine. I think most of his like workout advice isn't very good. I think it's like way too over the top for most like young guys. However, this is sort of the issue. When you say people are saying this, who are we talking about?
Media.
Find anybody. You can find anybody making negative comments about anybody.
Okay, but
I see people on Twitter.
Hold on. Ghosty. It's not just anyone making these comments. I could pull you up articles right now where like Vox, right? Slate, CNN even, right? Like pretty mainstream outlets are saying these things. So it's not just randos, right? It's mainstream outlets.
About who specifically?
About red pill in general, right? The reason, again, this was pointed out by a chatter, right? But it's important. The chatter says, and I know they're chatters, they're not real people, okay? But what they say is that the reason that people say we can't talk about this isn't that they literally can't talk about it, like they will get their tongues cut out. What they're saying is, if we talk about it, there will be social consequences that are above and beyond that of a normal conversation. That's what is meant by that. So, and
like
that
gaining millions of followers.
I promise you, I've had shows, right, that have received a lot of criticism. I got banned for my incel panel, right? I got banned.
Yeah,
it got overturned.
I was on that panel.
Yeah, it got overturned. No, I think this is a different one, right? But I got banned for it, right? Just because someone saw that I had incels on, and I was talking to those incels, and I got mass reported and banned until they looked into it, thankfully, and overturned it. But that's still like a week's worth of income I missed. That sucked.
Okay, I think all of us
I
on this panel would like disagree that's like a bad thing. Like I don't think I think it is important to have people on this panel and discuss things like that.
Well, I think the
Incels,
issue is. Oh, sorry, my apologies.
well, incels, Nazis, like the worst of the worst.
But the point that he's making is there is like there's groups of people like David Goggins. I just typed in
Hold on, are
Google,
incels
David
and
Goggins.
Nazis?
No, I'm just
These
doing
are.
a list. I'm
Oh,
doing a
okay,
list.
because they're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
related.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving a list of what would be the most controversial, what people report.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, no, and to be fair to Wick, no, I was on the panel that where the Twitch on the incel panel where your Twitch channel was taken
Were
down and
you?
suspended for a couple of days, and there was nothing said on that panel that I think was fair to be banned.
But
So
the point is bigger is more than this though, is right. Like so, I just googled David Goggins toxic in Google, and there's about 30 articles and about 100 Reddit posts, all calling him toxic, right? The point is that yeah, you're saying it's over the top. Like sometimes, like I think a big argument from a lot of men, traditional men, is like maybe don't be a bitch is a thing that like some men need to hear. Like, hey, you like don't you look, you're fat, you're out of shape, I can't get girls. Okay, well maybe if you're at the gym, stop being a fat slob. I say this is a fat slob. You know, you go to the gym, you're gonna feel good about yourself. You're gonna like be able to go talk to women. You might have the confidence. There's like people go, oh, that in and of itself is toxic, and like
I
they're sitting here going
agree.
and like paint this guy, and it's not just like y'all on the panel might not be doing this, but y'all are doing the same thing that our side, like some people on our side are going to say, oh well, it's just a small group or oh whatever. But it's like there's a predominant thing, at least within media, that's willing to paint it. And if when media is like such a big voice, that's the issue. Like y'all are willing to throw everybody in the same
Well,
lump sum.
I agree, but I think you can Google literally any streamer or famous person and put like toxic or a negative word behind it in Google, and there will be a list of articles
Or here,
that show up.
I agree, Gosi. Would you agree that if I were to do that, that would mostly I would see a lot more of that with male influencers than female? Particularly that term being tossed around.
In particular, the word toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just because toxic masculinity is a term where toxic femininity isn't.
Yeah.
But
It should be.
there's going to be
so-
tons of articles about women that are
Well,
saying
that's
you're
the
doing
point that I
terrible
made.
things.
No, but that's the point I made with the meme kind of thing about Cosmopolitan earlier. Like, and I know that it sounds like a meme, but this is what I'm saying. It's like they're sitting there willing to say anything a man does that gets like any kind of pleasure or happiness, and they're willing. Someone's
But
willing
you're
to come
taking
after.
one article that
No,
you're
but
upset
my
about.
point is, it's you're willing to. These
There's probably an
people
opinion
in
piece,
media
too.
are willing to go and take an opinion and say if a man does anything, it's toxic. That's the problem because it's like all throughout the media and it's all throughout the society now. Anything a man does is toxic.
So I don't think so. I'm kind of bridge the gap here. As someone who completely, I agree, toxic masculinity is the thing. I think the issue is that it's not so much that Admiral is saying where it's like everyone just hates everything guys do. I think the issue is that there is a somewhat understandable hesitation when men seek to form spaces for particular reasons due to these extreme examples. So, for example, I made a video about it, my history in the pickup artist sphere. Now, while I agree that like most of the pickup artist stuff, though luckily it's all been purged from YouTube for the most part. While a lot of that shit was like just really cringe and really crap, and I actually would argue sort of gave birth to the modern, red pill, fresh and fit, all that crap. However, the reason it came about was that there was sort of a missing piece, which was a lot of socially inept guys had absolutely no idea how to talk to women. So it's not so much that, to some extent, I think a lot of guys did get drawn to it for this sort of like fuck women, women are whores, that sort of tone. However, for a lot of guys, the reason they got sucked into it is because they simply were clueless. I don't know how to talk to girls. No one's teaching me how to do that. Now, the issue is, let's say I were to come out and say, hey, I'm going to start a group for men, or I'm going to start a YouTube channel that's going to teach men how to speak to women. I think it would be understandable for people to look at that and be like, uh-oh, that sounds a little bit suspicious. Not because of me as a character or there's anything particularly wrong with men trying to get better with talking to women, but because of the perception of, hey, whenever you say pick up a YouTube channel with showing guys how to get girls, I think of Andrew Tate. I think of Fresh and Fit. So it's not so much that it's, to your point, Avril, it's not so much that it's all male content. I think, unfortunately, because of the worst, it has cast such a large shadow over any sort of male space that does try to come about. That doesn't say that I don't think as men we shouldn't try and we should still make these spaces. But it is
that's my whole point is the perception.
That's sort of what I was pushing back on Ghosty's point. But there is more of an uphill battle for men in terms of making these spaces.
Yeah, but that's my whole point is the perception, right? Like just because something like
isn't that the definition? Just to put a pin in that, isn't that just the definition of being an underclass in society, right? When you can't do certain things because if you do them, right, you will be seen as suspicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, actually, isn't it?
This is the residual we were talking about earlier. This is sort of the residual, or I think even Cham, you kind of mentioned this passingly. I don't think you meant to, but you mentioned when it's like, well, a lot of young guys feel this way. And you said, well, how do you think women of the last 10 or 20 years have felt? Now, while I understand that, again, if we can't allow that to, it's the similar ideology of like, wow, my job sucks. And it's like your parents like, well, I used to work 80 hours in the sweat factory. And it's like, okay, that sucked too, but that doesn't mean that I should live a sucky life just for that reason. While I agree that women and female spaces have historically been marginalized and cast out and had to fight tooth and nail to get recognition, the issue is, you kind of mentioned, Wick, earlier, the pendulum swinging back, where men are kind of, particularly like young men who are sort of lost in the world, who don't know how to speak to women or kind of get their feet on the ground, they're trying to grasp onto something to kind of find their way. But because of the past, because of what had been, which doesn't really apply to their lives in any way, in most cases, still does, but not in most cases, it's a lot harder for them to do so because, as you said, they're sort of, in a way, they are a marginalized class. If we're going by marginalized in the more, specific definition of people who are not, not necessarily a minority, but people who are disenfranchised would be a better term.
$5 from Fire
we have so
Agicon, then
many
I'll let you
tools these
respond, Cham.
days.
Don't worry. I'll let you respond, Cham. But $5 from Fire Agicon. While men's spaces are fine in theory, who would actually want to go to one? I feel like everyone there would look and act exactly like Admiral Gibbs. Thank you for $5. And Cham, you're up.
I think we have so many tools these days, though, to provide like men with like knowledge, spaces. Like you've got websites where you can like meet up with people. You've got like all these like tools and resources you can do, but they like a lot of men refuse to do it because they want everything handed to them. Like you have the
sorry,
tools
go.
and resources to do that. I think you're just lazy. I think a lot of men are
No,
just
no.
lazy.
See, that's so funny you say that because I rally against this all the time. One of the biggest issues, and I keep being told is toxic about men, is men's ambition and like winning and losing, right? And that's part of the reason I've sat here and railed multiple times in multiple panels about participation trophy bullshit because they've sat here and made competition a toxic trait, right? So you're sitting here going, yeah, you know what? Men need to get good and men need to go out and do this, but they just want to be handed to them. I agree. That's because feminism and leftist woke ideology has made it to where even competition is considered a toxic masculine trait. And people are willing to sit here and be at home and be a whiny crybaby bitch and won't go out and work towards something because that is considered toxic. You're absolutely correct. Thank you for proving my point.
I just think a lot of this.
I'm a feminist, and I agree that like you should like work hard and stuff. I don't think that's like a anti-feminist thing. That's a fucking human thing. If you want to succeed in life, you should not sit down. That's just basic.
So I think actually both of you are correct in the sense that
I know I'm correct. Thank you.
So when it comes to men, I think that there definitely is kind of what Wick was talking about. There's an uphill battle in terms of men trying to form these spaces and having this sort of like air of suspicion put on them. So it's a lot harder for guys to sort of make these groups. However, and this is sort of, I think this was the subtweet of what we finally talked about, the woman saying basically what you were saying, Cham, of when guys actually try to do that, instead of finding spaces where they can be communal and help each other out, it mostly just evolves into shitting on women. And to some extent, I do agree. Hence why, again...
Hold on. Is that okay? Is that okay that we have spaces? Because women do it. I know women have these spaces, right? Women have spaces where they talk shit on men. That's okay.
Our server, we only talk about you, Wick.
I know.
Just
Me
the terrible
specifically, the
things.
manliest man, right? But no, I have no problem. I understand it happens. I think it's okay. It's healthy to vent, right? Look,
there's also servers where women never come up at all. Like you might have a men's only like football server, and then like,
but
so it's no,
what I'm
it doesn't
saying
always
here,
turn to shit.
My whole
about
point,
women.
and I want to hear Paula's point real quick too. But my whole point here, just real quick, my whole point here is that's okay. It's okay to have spaces where you get away from your women folk, right? To go and just vent a little bit. I think that's okay. I think that's healthy, even.
I think all of us would agree.
Well, I think the only difference, I think that is in theory, like if that was the space, that'd be great. I think particularly if we're talking about something like Red Pill or like the Andrew Tates, what I see and why I'm really concerned about these spaces for men isn't even putting aside any of the misogyny within the space, is that, you know, as much as cringy as like the pickup artist stuff was, at the core, and Admiral, this kind of goes to your point where we might agree, at the very least, pickup stuff was actually telling guys, get off your ass, get a haircut, get fit, go to the club, get rejected by girls, and improve yourself. So even if there was a lot of toxic bullshit in there, the core of it was very much self-improvement. However, what I see a lot in, to your point, Wick, what I see a lot in these spaces, a lot of guys are venting, but the problem is that they're not going anywhere from that. They're not venting and then getting on with their lives. They're staying in these spaces.
It shouldn't be your only space. Let's say that.
Well,
right?
that's sort of the issue where a lot of these guys, instead of, because like, you know, with a pickup artist kid, they go in, okay, I'm trying to learn how to get a better woman. I'm going to go out and get a relationship. A lot of these guys now, black pill, red pill, they're like, women aren't even worth it. I'm not even going to bother. They're all whores and stupid.
Well, I think the incentive structure financially has changed as well. They've realized they don't have to actually fix the problem. And in fact, if they exacerbate the problem, people will continue to come in. But Paula, you've been trying to get in. I want to give you the ball.
I was just going to say, why do we think people like Andrew Tate are so popular? There's something in the culture clearly that is making men gravitate to that. And my hypothesis is that we live in a feminized culture now. We live, that's just a matter of fact.
I agree.
With the rise that we've seen in something that I would call female chauvinism, we have the counter, phenomena.
Can you define female chauvinism for me? What do you?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate on female chauvinism? Elaborate on that term for me, please.
It's I'm actually writing a book and then the rise of female chauvinism at the minute, and it's kind of like coming down to kind of like tropes like the future is female. You know, we don't need men. We can do everything by ourselves. Kind of destruction of the family, and in response to that messaging, men see that in the media all of the time. The red pill is men asserting male chauvinism against the equal and opposite rise of female chauvinism, and people are just at odds with each other.
Why were you laughing at that, Cham? Real quick. Why do you find that funny?
I think it's simply the lack of accountability. Men aren't taking a lack of accountability for them. A lot of them are doing bare minimum fucking jobs, and they're bitching that they want to start a family, but they're making like $40,000 a year, thinking that's like all right. And it's just
I agree with some of that.
It's not feminism. It's the fact that I'm sorry. I do think a lot of
but it is feminism. It is feminism. You've taken away masculine drive.
Women are literally begging men to have. There's literally a term in like dating called homo.
Do you think females?
hobo, like what's it called? Hobo,
Homosexual.
Yeah, it is literally a term because like these men are so fucking lazy, they
No.
don't get their ass, or
Wait,
and then the
No,
women are
hold on.
out
What does that
getting
exemplify, though?
edged
Hold on.
with.
But what does that exemplify, right? So a lot of these men that are homosexuals, who are they? They're like, I'll give you an example, right? So I always laugh when men tell me, oh, that guy, this guy only gets girls because he's rich. And I'm like, well, that's funny because I can go down to the club right now and I can, in fact, I can get a girl right now and I can get her over here and she can see, and she's in my house and she'll tell you all sorts of men that she's dated and she likes. And she's one of those girls to see the club, and some of them are felons, some of them are scrubs, they don't make a lot of money. So you're absolutely right. There are homosexuals, but a lot of times it's because these are good-looking, masculine men in other ways. They're good-looking. They have that aggressive streak. They could protect them in theory. So they exhibit a lot of these other qualities that are masculine, and that whatever, and get them. So yeah, they might be homosexuals in that
You're
way.
going to a
So
club, by the way.
no,
That
no,
doesn't
that's
really,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine. But yeah, there's a lot of examples that I will say that yeah, sure, you can be masculine in many other ways, but the money is not the only thing. There is the destruction of family aspect because women are willing to sit here and go, I can blow this up because I have all these options. Well, a lot of men are just suffering, and these twos think they're tens. And there's a lot of, correct, the female chauvinism running rampant. And it's all throughout society because men have become little bitches because of participation trophy bullshit, which is stemming directly from feminism because they're sitting here, they can't afford
When
to
you
see
say
men
I
win
twins
think, I
ever.
think
censored, hold
women
on.
are
When you
watching their
think
back because there's a history of men fucking cheating on their their
Oh,
pregnant
yeah.
wives, their wives in general,
Mhm.
leaving them with financial struggles and shit like that. Women are like, I'm not gonna
Your
fucking put
argument
up
is
with my
literally men need to make more money.
mother.
That's not that great of an argument.
Huh?
Are you saying females have the power to take men's motivation and drive away from them?
No, I'm saying they've done. The society's already done this
Maybe
with
some of
like
the power.
by feminizing men in general and saying any masculine trait is toxic.
So just to bridge the gap, Paul, I want to answer your question as to Andrew Tate. But Cham, to your point, and this kind of goes to Admiral's point too, the issue isn't so much of like men being feminized or, participation trophies. The issue is that over the last 50, 60, 70 years or so, while women have been able to very comfortably or even been encouraged to step into different roles, go from like the mother or taking care of children into the career woman, and they're kind of given the freedom to do as they please and be supported, men, even in this changing world, are still sort of held to a lot of traditional masculine ideals. So even today, where I think most married couples are both working, and I think even salaries are comparable. I think most married couples are I think they generally are pretty comparable salaries. There
The
is still
average
this
American is like
expectation.
making like $65,000. So
But I
I
mean,
I
in
think it's
terms
like
of like,
45,000.
but I mean, in
no,
terms
it's
of
recent.
But I mean, in terms
Okay.
of the husband and wife both
two
making
people.
roughly the same amount and both working. The issue is that there is still an expectation on men to kind of be this provider, to be this person who is making the money, who is making the bread. But that world that they are expected to sort of be a symbol of doesn't exist anymore. It really can't exist nowadays, unless you're
Or-
making like 200K,
Well,
which
Yeah,
women,
I mean,
most people aren't able to do.
women want now men to be involved in the family versus previous, because previous men get this idea that okay, all I need to do is bring money to the table and I'm done at 5 o'clock. But women are like, I'm not doing that anymore because most of the time I'm also working. So you need to help with the children, you need to help with the
no.
cleaning, you need to help with the cleaning. Yes, that's
No,
Well,
what
why
it's
y'all are
the
doing,
divorce
what
rate
y'all
is
are
so
doing is
high.
y'all want men to change without changing along with it. So you're like, men need to
Women
make
are
more
having to
money.
get it.
So
How
Cham,
many
Women are
Cham,
having to
Cham,
get a
Cham,
job.
Cham, hold on,
Women
hold
are
on,
having
hold
to
on,
get
hold
a
on,
job.
hold on,
Women
hold
are
on.
having to buy.
We don't got too much more like this. There's a lot to talk about, but unfortunately we got a limited time. But
Well, I'm
Cham,
a woman. I'm just gonna say I don't
I
want
mean,
that.
how many
yeah,
times do we hear
to be
his
real
money is
with you,
my
hold
money,
on, real
and we never
quick,
hear that from
stop,
men?
please. Cham, you said that women are complaining that men only make $40,000. That's about the average salary in the U.S. is about $40,000 ish.
And it's a fine salary to be. I
And
mean, if
then
you're not living in New York, but if
not
you're
only that,
living
then it
in,
becomes it's shared money, not just because
Can I-
men's money is their money, her money is her money. How many times do we hear that?
I live in a world where I think your bank account should be separate, and then on top of that, have your own shared. I think that's the best.
I bring it back to the spaces conversation.
Quickly, and then unfortunately we gotta wrap it up. We're gonna talk about this
Okay.
next week too. Don't worry, gang. But right.
Okay, so we're talking about females having kind of like fuck you men spaces and men having fuck you female spaces. Well, I don't think that's like a good thing. I think it's okay to have them, but it's also okay for other people to criticize them. So while I like agree that for the past couple, maybe the past decade, there's been this like feminism kind of talking points and stuff, I do think at this point a lot of it is talking points and a lot of it is overblown. I think if you look at a lot of the female content creators and feminist spaces, they're going to have just as much negative feedback and just as much criticism, just as many articles. So I think right now it's just kind of like these talking points that we see, and anything you put on the internet is going to have criticism. So I think men need to get used to that, just like females have gotten used to having criticism. And as a reminder, this topic was about females invading male spaces. So males do have spaces. They have their spaces. They have plenty of them. And
For now.
yeah, people are you're gonna have criticism and you're gonna have to deal with it. And you can still have your space. Just learn to deal with the criticism.
If you want,
Hang
Yeah,
on.
or
What if
get
they don't
over
want
it.
to? They don't want to. It's not for you to dictate that to them. That's what they're pissed off about.
Well, we deal with criticism all the time too. That's just what
So
the internet
what? You're
is.
not
Welcome to the
meant to.
internet.
You've gotta give us some
Welcome
game.
to the world.
Well, to Paula, to your point, this is kind of the line we get a lot where it comes from. Well, men resent women telling them how to, operate in these spaces. As a male, I also will agree that the spaces that these guys are currently, because to Cham's point, are sort of like in opposition to your point. The issue is that like, men are kind of lost. They don't have these. They don't know where to fit in. So they end up gravitating to places to tie it all back in. They latch on to franchises or certain hobbies and then get threatened when they start to change, which isn't right, but I understand why they ended up there. Or, to your point, Paula, that is why they end up gravitating to people like Andrew Tate. However, as a dude, and like Wick pointed out, this is not a person, he's a snake oil salesman. He's not a person who is interested in actually guiding these men. He's taking advantage of them. So I am not saying that Andrew Tate is bad because it's intrinsically a male space. I'm saying he's bad because he is taking advantage of the hole a lot of young guys have in their lives and is taking advantage of it for their own for his own personal gain and financial gain.
Yeah, I mean, he's an ideologue, and he's, the young confused men are cannon fodder, but I would say the same for young confused women gravitating to feminist spaces who hear just as much toxic man-hating stuff as the men will hear about misogynist stuff in
Right, and they get
over
criticism
in,
too.
Andrew Tate.
I think, however, I will say, and this is where the big divide is, while I agree, I think because going back to what Wick was saying about there being more freedom for women to make these spaces, on average, there's a lot more healthy spaces for females to occupy. There are a lot of very toxic female spaces. I do not deny that. But if we step back and look at the whole, there are also plenty of super, very positive, lifting women up. When I look at, I'm not saying, Paul, I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying when I look at the entire scope of female spaces, there's a lot more variety. When I look at men, there's such a dearth of these spaces. That is the issue, and that's why they end up getting funneled to these really bad places. So I think the more we accept that, the more we are open about letting them do it.
I gotta throw a flag on the play here, gang. I gotta eat. I gotta take my dog out. I gotta do all these other things. If you've enjoyed this show, right, and I'm gonna give each of these people an outro. They can have their closing thoughts and they can tell you where they can find them. I got links to all their stuff in my description, to their YouTube channels, to their Substacks, all that, right, to their Twitches, whatever they've given me, right. I've given links to it. Please, please, please give them a follow. But also, while you happen to be here, right, while this is not a male-only space, this is a space open to everyone, you can join this space, right, anytime you like. I have a Discord. You can exclamation point Discord and chat. You can jump into Discord. It's a great place to hang out. There are people always arguing about whatever. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that follow button if you're on Twitch or you're on Kick. Throw me some subs. I appreciate you, Polar's Night, for all the subs you've given me today. Really, thank you. Thank you for the bits. Thank you for the super chats. I really do appreciate you guys. But we're going to give it to these lovely individuals, and we're going to go in the reverse order that we went last time. We're going to start with Cham, and we're going to end with Paula. Cham, close us out.
Okay, yeah. I think a lot of people are being over dramatic and being victims on them feeling like the world's being taken over by women. I think there are plenty of video games, there's plenty comic books and stories. And this idea that women are replacing like characters is just like delusional when you can look up plenty of female characters. And so yeah, men being fucking victims again. Shocker.
Where can people find you?
On at me at Cham in Flux server if you're mad, bro.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate you filling in last minute. Thank you. $2 from Manny to the Max to say, listen, life sucks, Earth sucks, Mars 2024, let's go. And $2 from the Trib to say, Tate is popular for a reason. There are bad people. Thank you for the money. Gibbs, go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Admiral Gibbs. If you like what I have to say, you can find me as Admiral Gibbs. In closing, basically, listen, the feminists clearly have agenda. You can't trust them. It's very bad. And especially don't trust male feminists. They're cuckolded by the feminist agenda, and it's very, very sneaky and insidious. We can't trust any of the feminism across the board because they've been invaded by an evil ideology. It's corrupted it. And so that's kind of where we're at today. And basically, that's all I have to say on the issue. If you like wild debates and whatnot, we do them all the time. I'll be doing another debate show here in about 30 minutes. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Ghosty.
Okay, hi. I'm Ghosty. It's spelled with a 6 instead of the G. I do weekly live streams. You can find me on YouTube and then link below. And yeah, I pretty much said everything I have to say. So that's just gonna be my outro.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Macabre storytelling. Go ahead.
I think male spaces are important. I think they are functional. I think they are helpful for men. However, I think the issue is that because we are there is that air of suspicion, that bad umbrella over the term of male spaces in general. A lot of men flock to things that really aren't male spaces, things like hobbies or activities. And that's when stuff gets weird. That's when they kind of get threatened, when it seems like women are taking over, which I don't really think they are. But that is why I think that we should promote healthy male spaces and not people like Andrew Tate. And you can find me at Macabre Storytelling on YouTube.
Check him out, gang. He's if you liked this panel or you hated it, he's responsible. He asked me to put it together, so I did my best. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. Last but certainly not least, Paula, please.
Yeah, I'm on X at Sexy Isn't Sexist, and I have the Vein Tempest podcast. It's got the link in there. I'll be speaking to Posey Parker tomorrow on that. Had interviewed Scott Adams previously. I'm also an evolutionary psychologist and a feminist critic. And I would say, guys, you're not delusional. You have a right to feel how you feel and criticize as much as you want. I think, as much as we talk about male toxicity, I think we need to talk about the toxicity in feminism, and
yes,
women need to own up to that.
They need. It's time. We talked about women's rights enough. Time to talk about women's wrongs. Gang, if you like the show, again, like the stream, we're gonna raid out into Admiral Gibbs. Say hi to him. Let him know it's a hate raid. Friday is the next stream, and we're going to be talking about the media. Is it sane washing Trump? We have some great guests. We're going to have Lactoid. We're going to have Headless Chicken. We're going to have Generic Plays and some other people in there. So check it out. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh.